hailing frequencies open all the way from Starbase 1. Happy Star Trek Day. I'm Captain Johnny.
I'm Ensign Kayla. Happy Star Trek Day, y'all. Welcome, welcome.
And we are joined by two of our ambassadors, Ambassador Allison Troy, Ambassador Brick. Thank you for coming on with us.
Hello, hello.
Welcome.
Feel so official with the title, Ambassador.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
As
you should. Yes. Emphasis on the ass and ambassador.
More like
Yay.
a sass-bassador.
There you go.
Ooh.
Wait.
Love
If I'm an
that.
ambassador, let me. I do not condone a course of war that will lead us to war, Senator Palpatine. Wait. Governor Tarkin, I thought I detected your foul stench when I was brought on board. Would have expected to find you holding Vader's
okay.
leash.
We're a fan of all the stars.
Enjoy the stars. Yeah.
We are. We're just here to have fun and
Yes.
celebrate
We
Star
are.
Trek Day. Let's say hi to folks, right? Or
Yeah.
did you
No. I'll
smoke
say it
ham?
after. You get shiny
Smoke
plastic
ham.
people?
Thanos? Oh. Yeah.
Live long and geek the fart out. Fucking
Thank you
love it.
Keeping an eye on the top.
You're welcome. The top is important.
Thanos, Casquino. Casino's Skunk
guys.
Production.
New class of
Hi,
ship.
Ralph.
Casquino class.
The Casquino
To
class.
what
I'm gonna have to write that
Thanos
down.
to what Thanos just said, it's just celebration because today was the first day that Star Trek ever aired. So
Yes,
fun
the
fact.
man trap.
Trapping all the men.
Old Nancy, the salt vampire.
Yes, and her sucking face. All the sucking happening.
That vampire was so salty.
Oh, are you Yeah, I'm sure you're a moderator because you've also helped with our thing.
Oh,
Yeah.
So
Is that
Ralph.
a wrench? I was like,
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
a wrench.
I
Ralph
thought it was
has
something else.
gracious enough to create our stunning Geek the F Out logo. And
help
also
organize
helped
our-
organize our YouTube homepage.
channel.
Ralph is a
Indeed, he's the best.
multifaceted guy.
He is awesome, and he was just on our Ahsoka stream last Friday with Shiny Plastic People. We'll see if he comes back. And Mega J. Yeah, it was the three of them. Okay. For some reason, I was thinking there was another person, but the other people were us.
Was it Jimmy?
Jimmy, yeah.
And we'll be on live action Star Wars for Ahsoka on the
Woot.
20th. I am looking
Oh,
forward
very
to
cool.
that a lot.
Yeah.
That comes on really early, guys.
Yeah, we're doing 9 o'clock.
people?
Don't worry, because if I had to do 7:30, that means I would have to get up at 4:30. So I'm
Yeah,
not
right?
doing that.
That's why I always miss it and catch it on the replays because it's like 7 a.m. West Coast time, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I
I'm
love you, Ralph,
usually
and I love this
asleep.
show, but I don't love anything enough to be up and about at like 7 a.m. West Coast time. Except like if it's I have to order like a Motu Origins figure or something. Then
Priorities.
Priorities.
I don't have to talk to anyone or interact or be sociable if it's that early for toys. I just have to click
Yeah.
buttons and scream at the screen when they sell out. So
Very
Exactly.
nice.
Exactly. Anyways, excited for you guys to be here and to talk some Star Trek. This is the first time we're talking just like general Trek and not just about a series. This is very exciting. Okay, Johnny.
Yeah.
Guess I'm just the only one.
No, yeah, I actually had. thought there was more coming. I actually had I'd been.
That's what they said.
I always get. I always think of the Eddie Izzard bit about the Spanish Inquisition. It was far too inquisitive. Should have been the Spanish casual chat, and like doing like the GTFO casual chat as a as like a series and just getting people and talking about geek. Just just a casual chat.
And
and that's what we're doing here today. Just a casual chat.
It's kind of fitting because we do want to do these more like general like Trek or like Star Wars or any other fandom or toy chats. And just kind of fit well that our first one was on Star Trek Day.
Here's a good question.
Wouldn't do it any other way.
How do you want to?
Oh, and me. You can handle me however you like. I honestly, there's a lot of stuff I kind of know or I've kind of gotten spoiled on. I would say just don't spoil me of the like TOS crew / the TOS seasons. Anything else, like anything beyond that, you can spoil. I don't care.
The TOS crew and the seasons?
Yes.
Okay, got it. That is
Does that make
a
sense?
sizable chunk of the
I know.
Star Trek.
But one of the things we were talking about this is
or
she said she thinks
just tell me to take my headphones off.
Yeah,
I mean,
she thinks she's gonna forget because it's gonna take us so long to get through TOS. I was worried about spoilers, and she was like, "I'll forget by the time we get there."
Yeah, I have a good memory in terms of things that have happened and like personal interactions and events. But in terms of just a random comment about a show, I'm not gonna fucking remember that.
Well, that's like
maybe if it's very outlandish or something out of the ordinary, but it's like if this person dies or this person like hooked up with this person, I'm not gonna remember. It's fine.
Well, that's like one of the things I was thinking about Lower Decks, like because it came up in the Discord with Moopsy on Lower Decks this week.
I know. But like that doesn't mean anything to me. It's a cute little thing.
Yeah. But like Lower Decks is like drops major spoilers like what McFarlane drops Batman figures. Like it's just constant.
We're up to 98 Batman right now, so.
Have you actually counted them?
Yep.
I quit.
98 Batman, 57 Jokers, 22 Batwings, and a Jokerized Batman, but it's not really Batman. It's his alternate mirror universe twin, who's played by William Shatner's understudy.
Very fitting for.
And before you give her too much credit, there's a spreadsheet in one of her million of tabs that's doing all this work.
There really is not. I just come up with it on the spot. It's the only thing I can do spontaneously is dunk Todd McFarlane's mini Batman variants.
Nice.
Oh, there's so here's one of the things that was announced today that
how long he'll sit here.
I saw it and was like, what is
it
going on? It's this. I'm gonna share the tab.
Oh, is it the thing that I sent you?
Yeah. So hang on, I'm going to adjust this.
Sorry, I just got excited at the Kid Cudi mention. But
right. I got real excited too. I have no idea what's going on.
Not familiar, so you're gonna have to educate me as to why this is.
He's an artist.
Okay.
Singing artiste.
I've heard the name, but I honestly don't know.
I'm on the pursuit of happiness.
So it's a multifaceted partnership which will include music, gaming, and fashion that will launch in October.
Music, gaming, and I figured music, and I could kind of see from fashion. I don't know really what he's involved in. Is he involved in any kind of clothing lines anyways? No one knows. All right.
Says the collaboration includes Kid Cudi's unique lens on music with an original song inspired by Star Trek, an interactive gaming component, and a bold fashion collaboration with Star Trek that will launch this October. Additional details will be launched at a later date.
I wonder if they wanted to launch it now, because it seems weird now that they're launching it in October. you know.
No, I mean, I don't mean we're talking Star Trek, which is generally pretty hopeful, but to be kind of weirdly cynical, it feels like that announcement feels like when they say like gaming component, what is like an app with like, like it doesn't sound like a mega
A
game or
big
anything.
thing.
Yeah, but
Well,
kind of
there's
cool because I know he's a big fan and like super into music in general, but he's also super geeky and
Mhm.
he was doing some acting as well, as credited as Scott Mescudi, which is his name, I guess. But he was in oh my gosh. Oh, what was that HBO show Westworld?
Westworld, he was?
Mm-hmm.
See, in the new season, I've only seen the first 3.
So again, this is probably one of those headphones off moments, but yes, I'll just say he is
Well, I figured.
his for Westworld. But so he's like definitely, I've heard him talk a lot about comic books and sci-fi in different interviews. So I am curious to hear what like a Star Trek inspired Cuddy track would sound like.
Mm-hmm. I'm excited. Yeah, I'm a fan of his work. I don't know too much beyond the stuff I've listened to. But yeah, I'm excited. We'll see. It'll be a whole new venture to boldly go where no man has gone before.
So
Is this the tie-in?
No, speaking of gaming, this is a
Okay, I was
game
gonna
that's coming
say.
out in October. This is Star Trek Infinite. It is so there's a game called Stellaris, which is a huge like space empire RTS real-time strategy computer game.
Mhm.
And there have been a couple of Star Trek mods for it. Like conversion mods. This is an official release by Paradox Interactive of a Star Trek real-time strategy game using the Stellaris engine. It's coming out October 12th. You pick your faction and you go through like a story of you make decisions for your faction, whether it's
Faction.
Federation, Klingon, Romulan, or Cardassians.
Kardashians? What?
Yeah, I was gonna say Kardashians. What's going on here?
Discuss.
I had to.
Everybody has to. You're allowed
I'm
one.
also thinking of factions like Divergent factions. I don't know if anyone's read or seen the movies.
I have not, but I'm
seen
familiar with them.
Isn't that Titanic actress in those?
Yes.
Kate Winslet?
Yes, she is.
And
That Titanic actress.
She gets mad props though for letting Leonardo DiCaprio freeze to death. Like I've only seen that part of Titanic, and it's truly the best part of that whole movie. So. Like there was so much room for him up there, and she was just like, "Nope, you're my shit."
Today.
It's like, oh, girl. It's like 18th century feminism or something. Anyway. So yeah. Anyway, Divergent. Haven't seen it, but obviously.
No. That's okay.
But yeah, it'll be
the first movie was good. The rest are like meh.
It'll be interesting to see what all that collaboration brings.
I mean, just curious because you mentioned that. Sorry, but that Infinite's game you mentioned was in October, and that whole thing is coming out in October. Could they actually be referred? Is that potentially just a marketing?
It's possible synergy, brand synergy.
Synergy.
It's like, Showtime synergy. Wait, wrong franchise. Sorry.
What's
We're all familiar with the gem and the holograms, right?
Synergy.
Johnny is not. Johnny, you don't.
No, I am. I was thinking of something else. I was thinking of there's a song on Mandatory Fun by Weird Al Yankovic called Mission Statement, which is like perfectly encapsulates what it was like to work for Best Buy.
AKA you.
Yes.
Yo, I worked for Blockbuster, so I feel ya.
Decade of my life.
Thank you for calling Blockbuster, where you could pre-reserve your copy of Forrest Gump for just $19.99. It's a terrible, awful, stupid movie, but I'm sure you loved it because you're so plain and vanilla. I think that's what I had to say when I answered the phone. Anyway.
So this whole Star
Anyway,
Trek Day, we were talking before we
Oh, yeah.
started. Like, what's the? So someone mentioned, was it Thanos who mentioned, or no, that this is the
Dennis
date
asked
that
why
there's.
it's, and
But
I was like,
I
it's the
didn't
day.
I didn't know about it, and so you all were kind of filling me in on this. Apparently, last year you were saying there was kind of more going on with Paramount Plus in particular, but not so
Yeah,
much. Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
yeah. Paramount had like it was either last year or the year before. They had like an all day like stream event to celebrate Star Trek Day. So it's kind of similar to like Star Wars has May the 4th, and then like on live action Star Wars, they
Celebration.
like to talk about Orthodox Star Wars Day, which is May 25th. Um, So Star Trek has a similar thing because they have this now with Star Trek Day, which seems to be more pushed by Paramount, but
Mhm.
the fandom seems to embrace First Contact Day, like the unofficial First Contact Day,
Mhm.
when Vulcans made first contact with Earth, which I think it was
Ooh.
April 5th.
With I guess Captain Ephraim Cochrane, was he a captain?
Zephram
I don't know.
Cochrane. I don't think he
Zephram, yeah.
was technically
No.
a captain.
Dude made a homemade ship, Zephram.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
He created the first warp engine, and when he did his warp flight, the Vulcans picked up the warp signature and came to see what was going on, and that was first contact, and it was April 5th.
And what year was that supposed to be?
It was supposed to be April 5th, 2063.
Oh man,
So it hasn't happened yet.
Not yet.
we need it. We need it soon.
Are you
but
guys
yeah,
still
it's
gonna
long.
be here?
No.
Not to be morbid, but
What year?
It depends.
2060
I would be 83 years old.
Was it
Okay.
63, 66?
you might be here.
2063.
63. 40
So-
years from now. I'll be 87.
Okay. Maybe there is hope.
These
'Cause
may
I
not
don't
be
know what I'm-
real by then.
I don't know if I could do this without y'all.
I'm sure by then they'll be able to cryogenically freeze all of us, and we'll still be
That's
here.
true. That's true.
I mean,
Or we'll
I'll just do the upload version of you, Allison,
Yeah.
and you can pick whoever's body you want to go into, and you'll be my friend forever.
there we go. So it needs to be like one of those big, like my size, like American Girl dolls, because those are pretty, like they look like they're gonna stab you in your sleep anyway. So like if I'm gonna get
Dolls
stick
are
around,
fucking creepy.
I know I don't. Somebody was like, "Oh my god, American Doll! Like, let's go get American Girl. Let's go get those." And I'm like, you can go without me because that
Mhm.
it's her. I don't know. You
I've
can
never-
just
I
tell
never
that you would
liked
wake
them.
up in the middle of the night and it's like suddenly it's in the
Stab.
clown outfit from Poltergeist. So
Oh,
yeah,
God. Anyways, tangent time.
Yeah.
right.
We really
Smoke
need
Tam
to-
has a very good
work.
point. Like I'm thinking about
We
First
will
Contact and
have
excited
to
about that.
survive World
But it's
War
true. We
III
would
first.
have to survive. Yeah.
You-
Although they
eugenics
did wear
wars.
really cool clothes, it looked like, at least in the first episode of The Next Generation, it looked like they were.
Hmm.
Was that sorry.
Uh,
when Q
It's
appeared
World-
and kind of
Should I
had that
take-
thing?
should I take
Weren't
my
they
hand
supposed to
off?
be wearing those outfits?
it's a spoiler, but it's inconsequential.
It's not.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
I'm-
think
Oh my
that's
God,
the
Megan.
period that particular uniform was supposed to be from.
Those are pretty cool. Those weird, like Dune looking.
With the
like,
that was very Dune
Mhm.
inspired. With like I don't know if that was a
I could just
offer
like,
for a
Love
drug
me some
or
Dune.
be absorbed by V'ger, like V'ger, and like I could hang out with what's his face and Ilea, whatever her name was. I just know it because
Ilea from
I've only seen that movie once. I just
Oh,
always
is that from the first movie? The
Yep.
motion picture? Yeah.
I got her on eBay during the panorama. Some dude had to let go of his entire collection to pay his bill, so I
Wow.
got it for $20.
Amazing.
Yeah,
So you
she's pretty
benefited
cool.
from it.
Yeah, I was gonna say. Well, you were literally helping him.
I
Like,
helped
don't
him
give
pay
him that.
rent. He might have even got some Uber Eats that night so he could have McDonald's. Like I did, and I have her now. I
You
wanted her when I
did
was
the
a kid,
Lord's work.
but she was too spendy, and it was just like there were Princess Leia toys to have instead, and you know. So anyway, but yeah, I mean, he sent me the whole story, and I got he had the little Mego figure of her as well. Like apparently it was, and like there was a Deanna Troy figure, all three of them in a lot. So I got his
I brought my
entire.
littles with me.
So
Oh
that's,
yay!
that's my
Oh,
whole
those are
Star Trek collection.
cool.
They're the ones from Comic Con.
Oh my
Well, I
gosh!
loved the
Oh,
packaging from those old ones that you shared, Allison. Just were so cool. Like
Yeah,
is it Migo, right?
yeah,
no.
Mego.
Yeah, the old like hand illustrated
Yeah,
portraits on the bottom, and that
and then
whole
in the back they have the little, like the publicity photos.
Oh,
So-
those are spoilers, so close your eyes.
Are
No,
they?
I'm just kidding.
I'm
Well,
not even looking. I was just highlighting.
I like her description on the back of the box. This exquisitely beautiful and bald lieutenant and navigator of the Enterprise comes from the distant planet Delta 114. She is the newest addition to the Enterprise crew.
Because
and she's a real
bald and
Tasha
beautiful
Yar
can't-
too. So anyway,
can't coexist.
Oh,
I have a big beefy Klingon. I don't remember who made it or when it came out. Are you talking? Which kind of toys are you talking about right now? Just saying.
I dated a big beefy Klingon in college. So.
Anywho, is there? So they came out with some short treks too.
A very short trek. Yeah, one.
Yeah.
There's more
It's just
coming, but they
one?
released
There's more
one
coming.
today.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
I was waiting on you to tell me if I can watch them.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, this
Yeah.
one, yeah.
This one
There's
at least.
yes. It's not canon. It's kind of it's done in the style of the Star Trek the animated series. And it's like a comedy. It's like a Robot Chicken sketch. Essentially, is how it came to me.
Okay.
Because it's done by the guy who did Too Many Cooks for Adult Swim, so it's very much got that vibe to it.
Yeah.
If you're familiar with Too Many Cooks, if you're not, you might be better off. Although it is kind of, it's
doing the Lord's work of saving me minutes, Johnny.
Yeah, it's wonderful and just head scratching and bizarre and fantastic all at the same time.
All the words.
Yeah.
Speaking of the animated series, that's the one thing that I feel like Star Trek has not given me that would really get me to buy a lot of Star Trek toys at full price. Is what was the cat lady Imra? Was it Imras?
Imras. She's actually in the short trek that came out today.
Interesting.
Is this one How to Skin a Cat?
Yeah.
I just saw that as one of okay.
And those are only on Paramount Plus?
It was on YouTube.
Okay.
Oh my
Part of
god.
it.
Have to check that out.
This thing you just sent me is amazing. I mean I don't know who the Cardassians are, but you just sent me. It's keeping up with the Cardassians.
It's like Klingons, but more. Oh, those are awesome.
Amazing. Love that. And then yeah, what else did get announced? I feel like there wasn't very much.
I don't think they weren't officially announced for Star Trek Day, but those statues.
Mondo. Yes. Got to talk about the Lower Decks statues, Brick. We're doing it.
Let's do it. It would be cool if they weren't just statues, but they definitely are on model per Mondo and really
I saw
cool
them
looking.
at Comic-Con, but I couldn't really get close to them because they were at the top shelf, and I am a hobbit, so could not really see them too well.
So these are from Exo 6, which is the one that did like the high end, like museum quality 12-inch figures. I didn't realize they were part of Mondo.
They must have collabed with them because they have both their logos at the bottom. Because yeah, I don't think they're owned by Mondo. I don't know. Someone look it up.
But there's the. They look like they were.
Don't we
Because
all,
there were
Black Phoenix?
images.
Don't we
Yeah,
all?
so they're statues, but they have different options for like how you can display them. So they've got a couple of
Oh,
different poses
interesting.
available. Because like this is the same Mariner as that.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool. Different.
With things like this, I often do wonder because it's similar in terms of designing it, creating the models, and then I guess sort of that next step of like, do we engineer joints or
Or do we not get articulated?
I guess it really ultimately depends on what the licensor okays or something. I don't know, but
Yeah.
still
And it
cool
might-
to see those things in 3D, just like it was cool to see them in live action.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And it might have
oh my
something to
gosh.
do with licenses that are already in place.
Right.
Like they might not be,
Competition.
because Playmates has, I believe, the master toy license for Trek, even though they're not really doing
There you
anything.
go.
with it.
Playmates.
So they probably can't do articulated stuff, but
Did it give prices? I couldn't see when you were
Um,
scrolling. I don't think it has
55,
it.
I thought.
Oh, maybe it does.
yeah, 55.
Oh, okay.
That's not bad for a 7-inch statue.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like there's just not a lot to them, but then also it's Mondo and EXO who are both very spendy, so probably not that bad.
But yeah, I mean, Monto, like when they give you a lot, it's costs a lot. So
And
I mean, for what? Oh, sorry.
No.
I was gonna say for what these are and the price, that seems reasonable from Mondo.
Mhm.
Anything more would be more, just because I mean, like, and I don't say that as a diss. Like, Mondo puts really high quality stuff out, and even when there are
Yeah.
issues like there have been, they're really quick to fix it, which of
Mhm.
course is what comes with that kind of a price tag, in my opinion. So for what the cost of those are, that seems fair and reasonable. So
And I think
Yeah.
also just given as you kind of mentioned where the Star Trek license is for toys or just products in general, I think there's still a little bit of a hunger, I guess, for lack of being served good food from Star Trek fans. I think 55 is like, ooh, like let me snatch that. But I am kind of
Yeah.
curious, the badgies, I've only barely watched a couple episodes. How are those what's the deal with them? I don't really care
It's-
about spoilers, but I don't know.
It's a holodeck thing from, like, it's a riff on Clippy from Microsoft Word.
Oh, okay.
Oh my
Okay.
god,
But it's
that's
like
amazing.
Oh
it's-
wait, was
it's
that in
badgy, it's
episode
in the-
1?
What's that?
Was that in episode 1?
I don't know if it was episode 1. I think it was in
Okay.
season 1 that Badgie showed up.
Because that gag
Um,
feels familiar.
Do you
that
know
it was
anything?
like guiding
anyone know
them through
anything
like
about this?
tutorials or instructions or.
Anyone? Nope.
which one?
Nope.
Let me.
I
Yes,
toys?
Yeah, I have seen those. I'm not. Me and
wow.
heads.
Toys. Oh, are they just?
No, they're cool,
I'm
They're
looking it
three
up.
and
but they're the what do you call them? The what's it called? The whatever universe that Abrams.
Oh, the
Oh, Kelvinverse.
Kepler?
Kelvinverse, yeah.
Kelvin.
Yeah, that's
Kelvin.
okay. I have seen those because it's supposed to be Quinto Spock, but it looks like
Oh.
Quinto and Nimoy had a baby, and that's the figure.
It
Like,
looks like they
looks-
put Tom Holland's lips on Chris Pines's mouth.
I've done that
And
in my head a couple times, so I'm there for it.
That
Haven't we all?
description that you gave Spock is hilarious because if you look at the McCoy, it kind of looks like that same mashup.
Oh my
but like,
god.
Yeah, that was the
Spock
thing
is
I've
like
seen is they
Botox
all
gone
kind of.
wrong.
It looks like it's like they told AI like design a figure for us of this character, and AI was like
McCoy.
okay, and then just squished them together. So
well, that's why
McCoy is
I
like-
was saying about me and head sculpts. Like I get pretty particular, and the challenge is that
These are
these are
rough.
real people, right? And so I have in my brain what they're supposed to
Why
look
not?
like, and then that's what messes me up.
I wonder if some of that comes down to like, I mean, I can't imagine though any actor at this point doing this.
I just realized who McCoy looks like. Sorry.
Oh no, you're fine.
Finish
Are
your
you going to
thought.
share with us?
Yes, but finish your thought, Allison. I'm so
Oh, I
sorry.
was gonna
got
say,
really
I'm
excited.
wondering if some of the offness is a likeness rights thing, but at the same time, like anytime you're in a movie like that size anymore, you sign away your likeness rights in relation to like whatever movie you're in. So
Yeah, I don't know. Okay. He looks like, obviously he does look like the actor, but also like fucking Aaron
Does he?
Samuels from Mean Girls. Can't really see. No,
which actor is that? Oh, what is
a little
no?
bit. Yeah,
Okay, I just did a close
it's
up and it
supposed to
looks
be
like somebody
McCoy.
carved it out of soap and then painted
I
it.
know.
Well, if
As
you
if
go to
it-
the last one, it does say pending licensor approval, but I
Okay.
don't know. Yeah, who knows?
Well, it
Oh,
But
looks
they
I
like
do
was
have a
trying to-
nice little have you found, were you still looking for it? Or
I was trying to find it to share. I can't find these anymore.
oh, here, I'll put it
the
in the
Haya
private chat.
Toys. I literally just searched Haya Toys Star Trek.
yeah, it looks up close. It looks like something Clint Eastwood would have sculpted so he
I
could
put it in the
escape from
private chat.
Alcatraz. Like, just
Oh,
Sprague.
like not
Um,
feeling it.
What
I'm super
percent though are
confused.
you? Wait, what are you confused about?
I've got it now. I thought you guys were talking. You're saying Haya toys. I thought you said these were hot toys.
Oh,
Oh yeah, we would not be discussing likenesses in this salty of a manner if it was Hot
no.
Toys.
Yeah, Hot
Whole
Toys
other-
is on.
If Hot Toys had fallen that
Hard.
much, everybody on YouTube in the toy tube world right now would be doing lives. What is
Oh,
going
yeah.
on with Hot Toys?
They would
It would be a
be
thing.
absolutely rioting.
People would be
Riots
like,
in the streets.
there would be like digital diarrhea in everyone's pants because Hot Toys had fallen.
Not
Like,
just on that plane.
yeah, no, it would be bigger than that weekend. Everybody was all about like the dumpster of like pop. Like,
I mean,
there's an
so
entire dump yard full of pop.
These
That's like anyway.
These cannot be the finished product.
they probably are.
They're
You
not.
like these are 3.75, so these heads are tiny.
Mhm.
We're looking at it, like it's bigger on the screen right
Tiny
now than
head.
it's going to be in real life.
No, that's good because it does look like it was carved out of soap and then painted. So
Yeah.
Mhm.
Which
Which
is
is great if
a
you
pretty
carve-
good description for my
Yeah, that
vintage
is.
shows. But
yeah,
yes.
I mean, if you
Yeah.
if you carve that well out of soap, like you are an artisan. But I'm not going to spend $25 for an action figure that looks like I could do that. Well, I'm not even.
There's Carl Urban's Essence, and then it's like you throw Aaron Samuels, and then you
Yeah.
throw in a bar of soap, and
He,
there we
yeah,
go.
he also
They
looks
made
like
a baby.
guy, like at the party, he was like, "I just got everyone's shots. We're doing them right now." And
No,
then
wait, it
turns
says-
out later.
It says 4.1 inch, which makes me wonder how much different in size they are versus the Playmates stuff.
But isn't that actor like 6'1" or something? So like maybe they're
Carl
in.
Urban.
Remember that year that Kenner / Hasbro did that with Power of the Force and all of the Power of the Jedi, and suddenly all the Leia figures were like 2-inch, like tiny little.
Oh, they like
Carrie Fisher's only
scaled them
5'2".
That one right there is what caught my eye, just from an action figure geeky kind of thing. It's like, oh, that's interesting to think about that on a little 4-inch figure.
Yeah, it's
crunch underneath the uniform.
it's similar to what like
Oh.
Storm Collectibles does, because I have their Jushin
Mhm.
Thunder Liger, and the costume is
that-
essentially
Did
an
you just say
overlay on a
words?
bunch of ball joints. Yeah,
What did you just say?
Jushin Thunder Liger.
Gesundheit?
Yeah. You need to go get some tissue.
No.
Oh my-
Anyway, yeah, it's an interesting bit of engineering, like you said, especially on a figure this size,
Mm-hmm.
to have. How much are these?
$24.99, I think, was suggested.
No. Wow. For a
No.
shit head sculpt and paint
Nope.
and
Nope. Nope.
I
Nope.
mean,
Nope.
how much is
have-
how much is a Star Wars TVC figure? But
The only time the TVC gets sort of in that range is whenever they like put it in the box and they throw a baby Yoda as if we don't already have 3,000 baby Yodas out there. Like $27.99 and there's a baby Yoda. No thanks, Hasbro. We've had plenty of
wait,
baby
really
Yoda.
aren't TVCs like $20 normal?
They
Or
are
20 to
unless
25?
they've gone up, they
think
tend to be
so.
$16.99 to $17.99-ish.
Maybe I'm paying the
Yeah.
Bay Area tax. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean you're
They're
in yeah,
about
I mean
20
like in San
correct.
Francisco everything is more
I
expensive.
got.
Boo.
I forget who I got. I got someone.
Oh my.
There,
Oh,
Kayla.
yeah.
That is
my.
Jushin Thunderliger.
Thank you. It just sounds like you're saying sounds.
Oh, okay. Now okay.
Well, also because that I have a lisp with SH, CH, J, and G
Mm.
sounds, so
Gotcha.
I can literally not say that. So
Do
props
it.
to you. No, it's like
Jesus
when I
and
say
Thunder
picture
Liger.
and picture, they sound the same. Two different words.
Yeah, it really does sound like you're
Is that
sneezing or something. Jesus and Thunder Liger. It's like
I mean,
I did kind of
reactions.
jam
There are
it all
reactions.
together into
Yeah,
one.
also it reminds me a little bit of when Cindy Brady, like that episode where they gave her the lisp. And like it was like the whole point of the episode where she had to learn how to speak without it. Like it kind of reminds me of that.
Yeah, I went
Like,
to
like you're
5
trying to make
years of
yourself
speech
lisp.
therapy.
Yeah.
Carry on,
I'm
kitty
sorry.
carry on.
Speech therapy is, and you know what's funny is, well, this
Tangent
isn't
time.
funny. This isn't like funny how this is like ironic, but where I went to school, our speech therapist, her husband had a really bad lisp. So,
Really?
so I would sit there and work on my vocal stuff with her, and then after school, like when we would run into them, I would just be like, "And this is the person that's supposed to be helping me." Okay. I just didn't have a lot of I did not have confidence. So anyway, which was often what she told me whenever in speech therapy. So we come full circle.
So the whole like Haya Toys doing the Kelvin timeline and universe stuff feels a little odd to me because I don't know, you know, we're here on Star Trek Day. Star Trek has kind of like mutated in many different forms, like in the relatively like recent, what we're talking in the last, oh god, now I'm feeling really old. When did the first Kelvin movie come out?
2009.
2009.
Oh my gosh.
Shanks.
But anyway, still
Yeah,
in
we're
the
coming
span
up
of
on
its
20
life.
years.
Yeah, still in the span of its.
It's not
Star
20
Trek's
years. There's still
existence.
6 more years. Don't say
It's
that.
like
No.
the latter end of the franchise. I feel like so much has happened, right? We've completely, we started a whole other timeline, and then we kind of started shifting back with the recent Paramount Plus stuff. So it's kind of weird. Like when we say Star Trek, or I'm a fan of Star Trek, it feels very hard to sort of figure out, like, well, what are you? Like when Haya says we're doing these, it feels odd to me. Like, oh, that's a thing that people are focused on right now, or so I don't know. Like, do people here have like a in their brains what Trek is and what Trek isn't? What's included, what's not?
Seems like some people do.
Preferences?
I obviously don't know as much, but I
So
think
here's
everything should be.
for me, yeah. So I'll start because I probably am the heretic here. So as a kid, I found Star Trek super boring, but again, I was a Star Wars baby. I did like the cartoon, but it had a cat lady. I only found out later that they got rid of the only black character for a cat lady, which that's another stream, Kayla. But let's make that one happen.
Okay.
Okay. So, but I liked that. So, and I love Star Wars. So we went to see the motion picture.
Amazing.
It was very long, and I fell asleep.
That's what they said.
Because the gloriousness of this exquisitely beautiful and bald lieutenant navigator of the Enterprise. She was not in it as much as she should have been. And also, when I look back, it was really weird that half of the marketing around it. Wait, there's some kids drag racing outside.
can hear
Okay,
that.
anyway, the marketing for that movie really was about the beautiful actress who had to shave her head for Star Trek. And it was just like,
Oh,
and then
gorgeous.
even as a kid, I'm like, she shaved her head for this? And then I fell asleep halfway through it. So,
Gorgeous.
yeah, for this. And when you finally get to watch it, you'll understand. And even if you
Okay.
watch the extended version, oh my God, the extended version.
I always
Which
like
is
the
suffice
extended
to
version.
say, Star Trek always bored me as a kid. Like all those movies, I just found them really kind of Shatner's kind of he was TJ Hooker to me. But then the Next Generation came out and it was rough at first, and then they killed off Tasha Yar, and I'm like, this show just improved like 30%. And I know she has her fans, don't come at me. Denise Crosby developed as an actress afterwards when they brought her back as different characters, but as Tasha Yar, she was very unhappy and wooden and not particularly. That first season was
Is
just
this TNG? I missed the
yeah. And
Okay.
spoilers for
So
somebody
that's
who
what
hasn't
you
watched a 4,000-year-old TV show, and you're surprised that Denise Crosby's character gets killed in season 1. I apologize if I spoiled that for you.
Yeah.
Should have
Just
watched.
to help real quick, the motion picture came out in 79. 8 years later, TNG came out in 87. All that to
Yeah.
say, well before you were born.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I enjoyed the Next Generation once,
literally
like the second or third season when like Hugh started popping up a lot, when Deanna Troy got a character, because before she was just kind of like hanging out, like she was kind of like a waitress, like as much as I had her do, she'd like show up to say a few things. And as the psychic counselor here, like I can read that you feel sad. Although she did have to get mentally sexually assaulted by way too many aliens who try to be reborn.
Oh no! Why?
Because it's TV in the 80s, and you know, that's what you do with your character with mental powers or whatever. Well, I don't know if they're powers.
Empathic.
Yeah, she was an empathic person full of who went through endless pathetic storylines.
And some of the people behind the scenes during that time did definitely display problematic behavior.
Yeah, definitely.
Particularly towards women in the cast.
In general, I mean, like, well, I mean, the one doctor, like, she got the shaft over on LA Law, but like that all like kind of blurs together. Not like what was her name? The doctor lady who was Beverly Crusher, right?
She was in LA Law. Anyway, sorry,
she
don't
left.
answer that.
They brought in the other doctor nobody liked, and then over on LA Law, they like had her step into an elevator, but it was gone, so she fell and she died. That woman's got some stuff to decompress.
Damn.
So yeah, it was. So I watched The Next Generation. I enjoyed it, but it was just really like weird. I didn't really. And then we got Kate Mulgrew and her hair, and all of those. And the what was that one was not Voyager, right? I didn't actually fully invest in a Star Trek show until Enterprise, because that was the first time that I felt like there was an attempt to get back to what made it Star Trek, but at the same time do something completely different. So I liked Enterprise. And
so
then
would you say it was a long road from getting from?
It was a very long road, and it was difficult because I really
That's
wanted to like Star Trek, because for a couple of years there wasn't Star Wars, and like if you wanted space shit, it was like Star Trek, and it just wasn't, you know.
Space shit on your spaceship. Right? That's hard for me to say. Jesus.
Yeah, right. But you know, speculative fiction and film and television, especially, is a great place to sort of, when you're a weirdo, you know, horror and science fiction is sort of a good place to go hang out and check things out, because you do get to relate a little bit more to them than you do any of the kids. And I mean, like, yeah, sure, Ali Sheedy, but like most of your teen movies and shows and stuff for your average teenager, like when I was a kid in the 80s and 90s, like it was not made for us. It was made for like Becky and Tom and like their sweaters. Whereas sci-fi and horror was where we got to hang out, and sci-fi was really cool because you got to go to space, and like being sort of smart, weird, and nerdy meant you probably were on the spaceship to begin with, because it was always the
Mhm.
cute, attractive people and those things that got killed off first. So anyway, so it wasn't until we got hot Kirk in the Kelvin verse where I was like, okay, I think I can really get into this. Because Abrams
Amazing.
solar flare thingies on the camera and hot Spock, because there's a lot of slash fiction about
Now there's
Spock and
double
Kirk
hot
over
Spock.
the years, and we've got a hot Spock and a hot Kirk, and like finally, I'm like, I get why people
Hot
ship
Pike.
these two characters. Like,
Mhm.
yeah, I can see that. So, anyway, it was a long road,
Amazing.
but I
That
love the
worked.
From
merchandise
there to here.
because I'm a
It
kid of
worked
the
out
80s.
perfectly because
Mm.
our first question for y'all was when did you start watching and what series did you start watching? So you just answered that. So Brick, it's your turn. Go.
So Star Trek TOS was like, felt like it was always on in syndication when I was a kid. And my brother was really into it. He's 5 years older than I am. And so he'd watch it and I'd kind of look at these folks in space and just thought it was kind of cool. The uniforms and all of that, the aliens, and kind of just got into the whole, like, this is space thing in general. And I really didn't understand a whole lot of it. Right. Like, and it actually would bum me out when all of a sudden we were like in the Wild West or like in Chicago with like gangsters. And I said that before, like there's something about that always would pull me right out. But that was me as a kid. And then I think the motion picture came out like when I was 3. So I didn't see that as a kid until like much later, whether it was on VHS or what. I think the first actual Star Trek movie that I saw in theaters, and it was kind of intense, was Wrath of Khan. I was a kid. And the thing that stood out were these things crawling. So there were these little bugs that they would put on and then they would crawl. Headphones? No, but
It just sounds gross.
yeah, well, there was some body horror stuff, which was awesome and
Should I take
creepy,
them
but
off?
cool. And there was no, you're fine. And there
Okay.
was a bare-chested Spaniard. No, there was
Ooh.
rather.
Hello. Put my headphones
So-
on back in time.
You have to say his name right, Brick.
So I in watching Ricardo Montalban.
Ricardo, yeah, you have to
Montalban.
roll the tongue. You can't.
Yes.
No.
Ricardo
Don't
Gotta roll
Montalban
those R's, baby.
Don't do them wrong.
with his fake chest, but
Was it literally
he-
fake?
I believe so, right?
No,
It was
I've read that's been debunked.
has it been debunked? That was his
not
actual
a plastic
chest.
chest. Yeah,
Oh, okay. I
Was
thought
it
it was some
just
kind
very
of Fantasy
shiny?
Island magic.
he was
but
just
apparently not.
he was just very fit.
Lubed up?
He just did not look like he had that
Well,
body
also,
on Fantasy
Yeah.
Island.
Yeah,
Well, also, like,
Le
people
plein.
have different body shapes, and, like, I feel like I've seen guys that have more, like, I guess the opposite of concave chests.
Convex.
Convex? Yeah.
Nerd.
We're nerds. That's why we're here.
So I mean, I don't know. I think when I really got into it was with Wrath of Khan, because there was that little bit of like action in it and in stakes and definitely an explosion. There was this whole sort of like I don't know, there was this subplot that attracted me, this notion that like they're not good, these are the bad guys, but somehow they've been isolated or shunned by society. And so I was, as a kid, I remember sort of being intrigued by that. I was like, I think they look cooler than the Federation. They look like barbarians and like these weird kind of like spacey barbarians. Anyway, like I think that's where the thing that stood out to me was like, oh, I think Star Trek's actually kind of cool, and I think I'm starting to understand it by that time. My brain was old enough, and so from there I watched all the movies. I was not so into the movie after, but still it was kind of cool. I'm really struggling to talk about this without spoiling. So there are just things that happen in Wrath of Khan that are very cool, that are spoilery.
Okay.
And then there are things that happen in the fourth one that are yeah, that have to do with the original
Oh yeah,
cast.
because it is all those movies.
Pivotal
I
moments
mean,
like in there, like no, it's fine.
okay.
It's Star Trek Day. We'll just
I was gonna
assume
Okay.
that we're all
people
kind
know what he's talking
People
about.
know.
You don't.
yeah.
I don't.
So
Why
from
am I
then I
here?
was really intrigued, and that actually illuminated like, oh yeah, these were those old shows that I used to watch. So and then I'd watch those back, and I was like, oh cool. And that was actually one of the first times, and I think I was right around that time. I'd say I'd been a couple years into comic books by then, and the notion of this long story that has a long history and being able to go back and buy back issues and learn like, oh, that's what happened like, years before with this character. That was all like clicking in my brain. So I was really excited to like have this consciousness like, wow, this universe is so much bigger than my little late 80s brain could wrap my head around, right? And so fast forward to 87, the next generation comes on, and I was actually like excited, mainly I think because the buzz around the house. My brother was excited. We set the VCR. This was a thing you had to do. You had to get a tape, make sure it was ready, figure out how the hell to program it, and then we recorded it. And I remember watching it that night, being super excited. Woke up the next morning, one of those next mornings, it was October 1st, 87. And the reason I remember it is because that was my first experience with an earthquake. I might have mentioned that here before. That was a big Whittier earthquake. Whittier, California, by the way, where Masters of the Universe motion picture is filmed when they come back to Earth. But anyway,
I know what a VCR is. Be quiet. I recorded Lost on VCR. Okay, shush.
So
shush.
I think the next generation for me, I was by that time 10. Okay. Yes, because I was 11. I turned 11 a couple months. And so I think in my brain, when I hear what you're saying about season 1, Allison, like it is bad. Yeah. At the time, as an 11-year-old,
it was season 1s of shows are bad. They're trying to find their footing.
But for me, it was like, this is the first Trek show that I'm alive for. Everyone was talking about like Star Trek is back, and so there was something about that for me. I was like, ooh, I want to check this out. And 11-year-old. 12-year-old, 13, 14, 15, and so I forget how long it was, but during that time, it was like teaching, like even just questioning things like the existence of God. What if God was an alien that controlled all the people? Like there were all sorts of things.
What
things
if
around
we're
gender,
being controlled by lizards, and then the Gorn show up?
And I share all that in talking with sort of like older folks when I describe that. Older folks who were in the TOS, they're like, yeah, that was what TOS was for me too. It taught me it made me think about all sorts of big ideas, which is in my brain, the beauty of science fiction or fantasy, right? It's sort of like we're going to create this whole other world, but at the heart of it, we're teaching you about kind of your world and making you think about your world. Yeah. So anyway, I think that's where the next generation and then everything that came after it, because it only got more heady from there. Like right after was Deep Space Nine, and it was like super heady, super serious, which was great because by that time I was 16 or something, and I was ready for darkness and the grim truths of war and reality. Years. Totally there for the actual birth of emo, by the way. But yes, and so yeah, I think that's kind of where I would just say I'll stop there. That was my sort of like my time with it. And by the time we got to Enterprise, I don't know. There was something about Enterprise. I think I was in college probably then. There was something about it where I actually was the opposite of Allison. So this is fun. We got variety here. Where I wasn't that into it. Brick. So
Emo Brick would be very interesting.
Bacula and like T'Pau, it was just like the chemistry again. It was something about like the captain and the like Vulcan, like having that chemistry. Just it's again like especially a child of the 80s. It's always like Sam and Diane. It's like Luke and Han. It's like you just like each other because you really like each other and you're fighting it. Like I don't know. It was just nice to have a human captain and a Vulcan who could like express that, and you knew that they could hook up on TV because like he was he was Scott Bakula, like who is married to
non-toxic
Tula and Masters of the Universe movies. So there you go.
Did you intentionally say Luke and Han?
Did I?
Yes.
I meant Han and Leia.
I was like, oh, that's kind of hot.
I mean, we've all thought about it.
We've all read that.
We've all thought about it. We've all read
that fiction when we were reading the Spock and Kirk.
Yeah,
so I'm just saying.
I'm just wondering.
There's just a lot of hot characters. I was about to say we love a non-toxic masculinity
Right.
friendships.
Yeah, like I don't know. Like it just Enterprise was just it was also it also felt like to me watching it that the people making it also got that Star Trek wasn't completely accessible to everyone and they were trying to fix that.
Mhm.
Like if you hadn't watched 20 years of Star Trek and hadn't watched all of the old episodes, even the Next Generation started out really accessible. But then once it started getting big, all of a sudden they started weaving in all of the stuff where if you haven't watched the old show, like you're not fully aware of it. And it was at a time where it wasn't, like you could join the Time Life Star Trek movie club and they'd send you like a $50 VHS of 2 episodes every month. But like I worked at Blockbuster, we didn't even have like the entire original series, so people would come in to rent them and it's like we've got like 18 tapes of like a 50 tape set, like good luck.
Damn.
So it's just now it's a lot easier to which I've been rewatching them. It's a lot easier for me to rewatch them knowing that I'll be able to like vent about it and chat
on our streams.
Right. Something weird will happen and be like, Kayla is gonna hate this and go off.
Yeah.
So I can tolerate it knowing that like, or when something weird and like now we're like, that's not cool. That was just a norm back then. Like it's really cool that I'm like, Kayla's not going to get that and we'll be able to explain it to her and then we can see how far we have come as a society. So anyway. But yeah,
and then there'll be some people in the comments trying to mansplain misogyny to me, it all comes back around. It's great.
Well, see, misogyny is sorry.
Yeah. Anyways. Johnny.
Yeah, I want to hear this.
What was the first thing of Star Trek that you watched, and when was that? That means nothing to me.
It was 100% Next Generation. So it was
really.
Oh yeah. I found Next Gen when it was deep in its syndication run, when it was like the local Fox station was playing it. Like there was an episode at 6 and 7 every night. Monday through Friday, and the new episodes on Saturday. I think it might have been in its like 4th or 5th season at that time. I remember it was before DS9 premiered, which was like 93. So it had to be like 91, 92. So I was like 11 years old when I first found
I just killed
Next
Brooke.
Gen. But I don't remember. I have no idea what the first episode I saw or what it would have been that hooked me. I'm looking through I've seen all of them so many times at this point that I can't even possibly remember which it was that I saw that pulled me in. But it was Next Generation. And then I got deep into like, I like the technology and like, I've read the Star Trek The Next Generation technical manual, which is like the owner's guide to the Enterprise D. I've read that thing from cover to cover multiple times.
Nerd.
100%.
Nerd.
Did you learn convex from Star Trek by any chance?
Sure. I have learned. I got there's definitely vocabulary that I learned because of watching Star Trek.
That's why I ask, because a lot of my vocabulary I remember as a kid was either from comic books or Star Trek or like science fiction.
I remember Star Trek is the first place I heard the term jury rigging something, because Geordi would talk about jury rigging things, and it was interesting too because like LeVar Burton on Next Gen, I also watched Reading Rainbow when I was younger, so I recognize.
Fucking loved Reading Rainbow. That was
LeVar Burton. That was I think that was the very first Kickstarter campaign I supported. Was the Reading Rainbow one that they did a couple. I'm gonna say a couple of years. I know it's been way longer than that at this point.
Yeah, so good. Him and fucking Bob Ross and Mr. Rogers, just like the trifecta of my
Yeah.
childhood of like good humans teaching good
That's
shit.
amazing. Yeah.
Bob Ross sometimes would sneak some shit in there, though. There's one time I was
That's what
watching
made
it.
him great.
I was watching it one night at 3 a.m. Just got back home from the club.
You're
It
like,
had
that's not a tree.
Yeah, no, he's going on it, and he's like, he was doing like some rocks in the ocean and a lighthouse, and he's like, now we're gonna paint this water in these waves, and right here we want a little violence, just right here, just a little violence in this water hitting the rocks. You know what a little violence is. You've been out too late drinking, you come home, your wife it's just a little violence, not anything. And I was like, wait, I'm really drunk.
I don't remember any of that.
Yeah, and I was just like, okay,
Damn.
Bob Ross is
Bob
Maybe
was
there's
working
a
through some
reason
stuff.
why,
Yeah.
Allison, maybe there's a reason why those episodes were on at 3 a.m. That was Bob Ross After Dark.
He's trying to send me a message like, don't go to the club, Allison. Don't drink. Don't start a fight with that horrible person at the bar. Too late, Bob Ross.
Tangent time.
Anyway,
I'm curious to go back to Johnny real quick. With
Yeah.
if TNG was your entry point, at
Mhm.
what point did you go back? Were you unaware of the other stuff when you found Star Trek, or
No.
you were?
I knew them. I knew the original series. There was a period of time where I thought like Kirk and Spock were just those movies, until I found out that there was the original
show.
series.
Wow. Okay.
Because I know
Now
they'd
I'm
play.
really feeling old.
They'd play the motion picture and Wrath of Khan and etc. 1 through 6 on like the Sci-Fi Channel, and I'd watch those movies. I'm like, this is different. This is before, but I hadn't really ever caught the series. I didn't watch the original series through until the remasters started coming out in 2006. That's when I finally sat down and watched TOS all the way through, and that was it. And so it's been like nearly 20 years too since I did that. So there's a lot of things that I don't remember when we're doing our rewatches, because I've watched Next Generation through too many times to count. Like at least
100.
it has to be at least 24, if not more, and that's being really conservative, because there's times where, you know, at least since they released the Blu-rays, I've probably watched the series through at least once a year.
Wow.
At some
Amazing.
point.
Since birth.
And that is honestly, I put it on my side monitor and it just plays while I do other stuff. It's not like 100% of my
Full
attention.
okay.
But there's certain episodes that come up, like Future Imperfect, Cause and Effect, Measure of a Man, The Royale, like that. I'll be like, I'll stop whatever I'm working on and I'll just be staring at the other screen watching the episode that I've seen 600 times. And then I never really I didn't get too into DS9 when it was airing. I just, because, you know, it came out in 93. I was like 13 years old. I was like, it's on a space station. I don't like that. I want a ship. So I didn't watch DS9 until much later. I did watch Voyager when it started, like when it premiered. I actually have still VHS tapes at my parents' house where I was recording, like I have Voyager episode 1 to 4 and Voyager episode 5 to 8. And then Enterprise, we didn't. What's that?
Hold on to those.
Yeah, Enterprise, I didn't have UPN where I was living when Enterprise aired, so I didn't end up watching Enterprise until it came on a Netflix streaming. That was when I first watched that.
Well, I watched the Kelvinverse movies.
Kayla's is real short compared to the rest of us.
I watched them when it came out, especially because it was JJ, and I love JJ from Lost. Don't know how much I love him anymore.
That was how the person I was seeing at the time got me to. He was like, "Let's go see these." Like, it's the guy who did Lost, and I was like, "Okay." And then
and then you're like, Chris Pine, I'm in.
We didn't know who
Earl
Chris.
Urban.
I mean, like I didn't know who that was. He's the son of the guy who was on the guy on Chips. So.
And Chris Hemsworth is in it. For
Yeah, and a
brief
lot of
second before he
them
dies.
were not
Spoiler alert.
not nearly the star power they have today when they did that movie.
I think
No.
Quentin had only done like
Well-
American Horror Story at that point, right?
Mm-mm.
Yeah, and
It was
even
Heroes.
yeah,
Hero.
he
I
was
didn't watch that
big from
show.
Heroes.
I didn't watch that because the whole like tagline "Save the cheerleader, save the world." I'm like, but
Yeah.
do we want to do that?
Yeah.
Like,
I was very anti-heroes. Sorry, tangent time. I was very anti-heroes because it was being compared to Lost at the time, and they're two
Yeah.
very different shows. So I didn't watch it
Yeah.
until like years later, and I watched the first season, and then I just like couldn't get into it after that. I felt
and
really
I feel like
bad.
I tried to watch it and I couldn't get into it because like they actually were trying to save the cheerleader, and I'm just like, that's not the movie I'm here for. But not long after that, a different movie called Die Cheerleader Die came out, and it was like, or no, Kill Cheerleader Kill or something. It was like a serial killer slasher movie where they kill all the cheerleaders. So I was in for that. Like, yes.
You're like down.
I'm in.
Sign me up.
Wasn't it a German film? D cheerleader? Never
Yeah,
mind.
it was like American postmodern, like meta, tongue in cheek, but it was acceptable.
I'm
was
curious.
on-
So then, if
Okay.
the Kelvin was what you started with, how did the second movies sort of like surprise thing, Doctor Strange, Benedict Cumberbatch, who he was, etc. Like,
Come on
what
her
is
back
that
foot.
like? What is that like? Like when they reveal who he is, did that mean anything to you, or you're like, no,
Nope.
it was just like, oh, he's not who.
I just rewatched them again recently, but then again, I was kind of doing what Johnny does and was like half watching them, and then I was like, oh yeah, he's Khan. Oh wait, I know who Khan is because of Strange New Worlds, but I don't really know who he is
Gotcha.
yet. So like, I got a little bit more context, but
Yeah.
no, there was no
So,
reaction.
context.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's-
No, I was wondering. I wondered how that resonates with you, because it's funny that the whole Kelvin thing is cool. I get it. You watch it. It's action packed. It's got like more modern production value and a way
Visually
of telling stories.
stunning.
Yeah.
Lens flares.
But
Yeah, lens flares.
But then it's
And
like it
actors.
still is very much self-referential to like everything that came before it. The whole creation of the Kelvin timeline, you kind of have to have some sense of the relationship of the Vulcans and the Romulans, and
I guess.
and then so I've always wondered how that works for someone who maybe like that's your first trek, because I would say it's even more challenging than if the prequels were your first Star Wars. I think they are. They're very far removed compared to the prequels. It's like, oh yeah, that's that dude's kid. And this one, it's like, I don't know. That's cool.
Luckily with Star Wars, it was the OG trilogy. Thank God it was not the prequels, or else I would have been like, I'm out. Although now I like them. Now I appreciate them. But I mean, it was also during the time when everyone was hating on them too. Although I don't know if I really would have understood that as a child. But yeah, no, I was just fully into them.
Mhm.
I thought they were fun. Yeah, I didn't really think too much into it, and there wasn't really anyone around me that was super into Trek at all. So like, didn't have friends that were into Trek. Yeah, so I was just like, these are great movies for the most part. Didn't really think of, or wasn't really like lost with anything. I don't know.
It's one of those interesting things, the perspective, because I remember the easiest way that I can explain this is with the anime Vampire Hunter D. My friend Mike, his brother had never seen it, and his brother's really into anime, so his name's Curtis. Curtis and I sat down and watched Vampire Hunter D, and it was a different English dub than what I'm used to, so it sounded really weird to me the whole way through. So afterwards I was like, here, let me show you this, and I showed him a scene from the dub that I'm used to, and he was like, no, see, that's super weird, because he had heard the different dub first, You know, that's what first gets imprinted on his brain.
Yeah.
So it's like, I wonder about things like, what do you think of like the Enterprise that's in the Kelvin movies compared to, you know, like what we've been seeing on TOS?
I honestly can't remember what the Kelvin first one looks like.
And it doesn't matter.
Yeah. It's one of those things where I'm not like nitpicky about all that stuff. I think just for this at least, I don't have the nostalgia factor, but even with other things, even with like Lord of the Rings with Rings of Power, and people are like we've talked about this before, Brick, like this isn't my Galadriel or like whatever. And you know, people get all nitpicky about that stuff, and I'm like, just go with the flow of it, just enjoy it, you know, suspend disbelief. I don't know.
And at this point, you've watched more number of hours of the original series and Strange New Worlds than there even exists of those Kelvin movies, because there's 3 2-hour movies. So like there's like 6 hours of that content, where we're going into hour 20 of TOS at this point.
And we've done 20 hours of Strange New Worlds.
Yeah.
Yeah. My Trek flu form. Yeah. I got my Trek flu from my 2 aunties and 1 uncle as wee lad there. But my first was watching reruns of TOS, then the classic movies. Love that. Thanks for sharing, Eldor.
Trek flu. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like how this whole thing kind of started was Kayla and I were talking about something, I don't remember what it was, and she essentially said, I haven't watched any Star Trek. And I was like, what?
Hold the phone.
And I'm like, why not? And I think what you said was basically you were intimidated by the amount of stuff that there was and didn't know where to start.
Yes.
And I was like, well,
Exactly
if you want to jump into it, here's my history. Let me know. I can give you recommendations of where to start.
Yeah.
And then it was when she was on Ken's stream for the MCU that I was like, you know what would be interesting? Would be if...
Is that when you thought of it?
I thought of it before that, but it was... You were on that stream like the same day. It was really funny because I like went to the grocery store
Kismet.
and was like, you know what would be interesting if we did a show about it with, you know, someone who's seen everything and someone who hasn't. I didn't think of it at the time as like me being part of it or her or doing it with her. I was just like, it'd be interesting if there was a show where someone who's seen all of Trek and someone who hasn't seen anything watch it together and talk about it. And then I mentioned it to her. And
yet to find anyone who does it besides us.
Yeah, I looked, like I tried to find a similar formatted show and I didn't see anything out there. I've seen people doing rewatches, episode by episode, but they're people who have all seen it already.
Exactly. Okay, next question. I mean, I think we kind of talked about it. Do you want to just skip that?
Yeah,
okay.
I think it's kind of covered.
Yeah. Trekker or Trekkie? Heard there's a lot of controversy with it.
It's been funny hearing the responses to this one because I remember it differently than people have been saying. So I'm interested to see what.
Yeah. Whoever wants to go. Oh, Allison.
Well, personally, neither. I think I've said Trekkie the most, and I think that's the one that upsets people. But there's literally a movie called Trekkie, so yeah. So if anyone is offended by being called a Trekkie, I apologize. Just let me know what you would prefer, and I'll refer to you as such.
Why do people get offended? I don't get it.
Some is the missing word, but yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, like, you know,
with teeny tiny parts to them.
I'm not trying to like isolate people, but like, I mean, I kind of get it. Like, if you prefer to be called, you know, like a Trekkie or a Trekker or I don't know, whatever. Like, good for you. Like, it doesn't impact my day. At the end of the day, I am not. My life is not wrecked because somebody doesn't want to be called a Trekkie or somebody does. Like, that has so little impact on. I mean, yeah. So I don't know. Like I hear that, and like I have the reaction of there are actually real things that people get called in this world that are damaging and hurtful. I don't
Yep.
know why you would make something up, but at the same time, like there are people where Star Trek is a really important, huge thing in their
Right.
life. So I don't want to minimize that, because if Star Trek is that impactful for you, the way you process your fandom of it is probably equally important. So I know, I don't know. Yeah, it's kind of like I don't want to like sort of dismiss it. I also try not to make.
Mhm.
I mean, there was a time where I would have made fun of that. I've evolved as a person a little bit.
Love
Now
that.
I'm kind of like, if that's what they wanted, that's their. If it is or it isn't the label they like, far be it from me to like, like you must be a Trekkie or you can't. Yeah, I don't know. Like
Mhm.
it seems like made up controversy. Like for a very small. I mean, it sounds like it's Star Trek fandom is very the actual core fandom that would select it, like a label for themselves, like Trekkie or not. That's a really small percentage of. It's a really small fandom. It's loyal, it's devoted, but it'd be the same as like There are a lot of Star Wars fans, but there are really small pockets of fandoms that are within Star Wars that are really that intensely connected. I think we kind of lose sight of that side of it because sort of we're all on YouTube a lot.
Mhm.
And on YouTube, a lot of these smaller pocket corners of fandoms are really elevated. Their voices, like if I were to go put Trekkie or not in search, I would probably get a lot more videos sort of being very, like very intensely passionate about it one way or the other than
Mhm.
you're going to run into if you actually go to a Star Trek convention, just because it's sort of it's not an echo chamber, but it's such a
Yeah.
um,
Mhm.
focused area that we sort of move in, that like we're going to come across really strong and passionate opinions about stuff like that. So I try to keep
Totally.
that in mind also. I don't know if you go to a Star Trek convention, yeah, because those are people passionate enough to go to a convention just for Star Trek. But I think in
Mhm.
general, your average person who enjoys and consumes Star Trek probably is not that upset one way or the other. But either way, I will refer to your fandom however you prefer for you.
Your preferred fandom pronouns.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. All right, Brick.
I mean, I don't want to sabotage the question or anything, but I'm kind of similar with like I actually haven't. I don't think I've embraced the idea of like communities and like around fandom um, up until maybe like the last maybe 10 years. Like this is the most intense I think I've really like connected with people around stuff like family
Mhm.
members or whatever. It was just different. Like we didn't have the internet. So what it would mean is
Yeah.
going to a convention, for example, and that just wasn't something I did. Like I went to a handful of comic conventions, but never like I'm into this one thing and I'm gonna go. Like I'd go to the comic book
Yeah.
convention. There was like cool Star Trek stuff over there, X-Men stuff over here. And so I don't think I was ever in a place or a space to be like, I am this and kind of claim it. I was really into Star Trek. And then I'd find people who want to talk about it. I was like, oh, that's cool. That doesn't happen too often.
Mhm.
Um, and so I don't think I ever just got into it. Honestly, I don't really think I paid attention to that conversation till I don't even know. It was definitely before the Trekkies documentary, but it just wasn't a part of a thing that I was
Hmm.
around.
Okay.
I'm sure there were
That's fair.
parties. I just was never invited. So
Oh.
it's okay.
Johnny.
It's interesting because I kind of remember the opposite, but then it was, it was when I was in, high school, and like I always thought Trekkie was the preferred term, and Trekker was like I don't know, like the more derogatory term used by people outside the fandom. So apparently I had it backwards. Ultimately, it doesn't matter, but I always
No.
referred to myself as a Trekkie rather than a Trekker. Trekker still sounds. I know
It
it's
just sounds
correct, like
weird.
it's grammatically correct, but it sounds wrong to me
Yeah.
in my ear holes. It doesn't
Yeah.
feel right. I believe it's like
Ear
one who
holes.
goes on a trek would be a
On
Trekker.
treks, right?
Yes.
So grammatically, it's correct, but it doesn't feel like the correct word to me.
Yeah, if it doesn't feel
Mouthfeel.
good in your holes, don't.
Thank
That one was just for you, Kayla.
Yeah, you know, I was very.
you.
I'll sort of add to that, in that I don't even think I even realized like Trekker was a thing. I don't think that was a word. I'd heard Trekkie. I just never
I
like knew that
had
I'm a
never
Trekkie
heard
until I think
Trekker
I started
either.
here. Was it in the documentary where I remember someone saying, no, we don't say that or something. I don't know. I don't remember where that came up, but I
Oh.
honestly never even heard anyone ever talk about and refer things to like, you're a Trekker.
I'm completely like conspiracy theory spitballing here, but I wonder if it wasn't like Trek fans who were tired of being called Trekkies in a derogatory way, instead of trying to like reclaim that term, just saying fuck it, we'll make a new one.
They recreate it, sure. I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll just call ourselves Trekkers instead of Trekkies. Fun to think about. I don't think it matters ultimately, but like
Yeah.
who was it?
In
Shiny
my brain,
Plastic
like you
People
said, it feels wrong.
yeah,
Trekker.
geeks and nerds tend to get up in arms about the weirdest shit. So
Yes. We
yeah,
do. It makes no sense. And there's way more important
Trekker.
things in life. Let's be
Was there
honest.
do we know, is there any correlation to a generation, like when you came in, as was there some generational
I
thing
think
to Trekker and Trekkie?
I think it has, like Vactor said this, and in like I think it was near, when Next Gen was airing, that it
Okay.
started to be more of a conversation, and maybe the questions around which was the correct term for Star Trek fans came into the discussion.
Smoked Ham thinks you're right. And he knows his Trek. Just saying.
Possible.
I don't know. It's just so fascinating to me. This is why I asked this question, because I know there's a lot of controversy behind it. And I'm hearing literally multiple different stories and multiple different histories. It's very fascinating. What?
As a Well, no, I mean, as a history teacher who's taught ethnic studies, for example, like literally what you just said, like that's history. Like there's
Yeah.
multiple different versions, and like
Yeah.
if we sit and listen to certain people for too long, we get the sense like, oh, that's where it came from. And then you talk to other people, like real people who are real fans, and they're like, yeah, I never used the term. And you realize, like,
Mhm.
oh, so anyway.
History was mostly written by white men, but wasn't actually
Well,
mostly written by white men.
yeah, or just yeah,
But that's
again,
what we like to teach in schools.
or just the like, because there were conventions, right? And I guess there's this notion of like, well, if you're like a real fan or you're a hardcore fan, you were going to these, fair enough. But I suspect that there were a lot of people who are really hardcore Star Trek fans who like never once ever went to a convention,
Yeah.
or maybe even knew about them, or knew that they were a thing. Or I mean,
Yeah.
I think that was the reality for probably a lot of people, because this was something that was like, like on CBS, like on broadcast TV for the longest time, for decades. And I'm sure there were a lot of people that loved it. And then TNG was big. So I don't know. And again, it
Okay,
was just a
so
different time.
I went to Reddit because we know everything there is correct.
It's all
Completely
done.
And so 6
We
years
found the
ago,
answer.
6 years ago, Trekkie or Trekker, which is correct. My chem
Okay.
teacher says it's Trekkie, but I always understood that Trekkie is for fans of only the original series, and that Trekker is for a fan of all Trek.
Are you sure you're not from California?
Oh my god. for sure.
From the valley.
So the reply is Trekkies are people who love Star Trek. Trekkers are people who take it too seriously. And then somebody else chimes in, they're interchangeable. Trekker was invented in the TNG era because it sounded less derogatory and more PC. If you understand why, please let me know, because it never made sense to me. It's been a good 20 years since I've heard anyone say I prefer Trekker, which is sad because it's only since then that I've learned how to punch people in the face. Sounds like a winner to me. Somebody right under that one says, I've never heard Trekker until this thread. And then somebody else, is this the original?
Yeah, I had never heard of Trekker until Johnny brought it up to me. I'm like, I've only ever heard Trekkie.
So this person seems like they were there, so they might know. Back in the 80s, being
Oh
a
my
nerd
God.
was an
Adam's here,
insult.
even though he hates Star Trek. Your boyfriend's
It's kind of
here.
like how neckbeard is used today. So Trekkie was kind of like that too. But the Trekkies wanted a name for themselves that they came up with that wasn't derogatory. And then the person who has just learned how to punch people in the face comes back with, right, but what I'm asking is why Trekker is somehow less offensive than Trekkie. And then it's Reddit, so you can guess where it goes from there. So
wow,
the answer
that is so fascinating.
Yeah. He just learned how to punch somebody in the face, which I'm like, how old are you, sir?
Well, the entire time he did punching at the chest. So
6 years ago, even. So anyhow.
Damn.
So we're no closer to the end of this mystery, but at least we have more context. In the 80s, being called a geek or a nerd was very derogatory.
It occurs to me right now that is Star Trek unique in that? Like, what do Star Wars people call themselves?
Yeah, I was just thinking that, like,
broke.
Fanboys. Toxic fanboys. That's what they call them.
Yeah, but it used to not be like that. So, like, that's a recent development.
There's not like a Warzer or like a Warsies. Like, there's no like.
Ewoks.
They're just kind of what's
Lord of the Rings people. Hey, you. Do Lord of the Rings people have a term?
I don't think so. And same with Harry Potter. I don't know. I mean, we say like Muggles, but that's
wasn't it Potterheads for?
Potterheads.
There's a couple other ones too.
That's definitely
I can think of at least one for some of the Potterheads.
I know for Farscape fans refer to themselves as Scapers.
He was a Scaper boy. I said, "See you later, boy."
Ringers. Yeah, Potterheads. I've just never really used Potterheads. It's weird to me.
It's pretty odd.
But I was like the OG, not OG.
Interesting.
But I was reading them when I was a baby.
Well, you were a child, so you should have. I was in my 20s when those books came out, so I never connected with Harry Potter. So.
Yeah, that was my gateway drug into sci-fi and fantasy.
Well, see, and as it should have been, because you were of an appropriate age.
What is Gene Roddenberry's quote about Trekker versus Trekkie, as pointed out by
wasn't he already dead?
Storm Tanuki.
Oh,
sorry, I love your Storm Tanuki icon. Smokeham said you should look up Gene Roddenberry's quote about Trekker versus Trekkie.
Yeah,
I'm scared to look it up.
It said it boils down to no, it's Trekker. I should know. I made the term, but it's
wow.
That is a secondhand account from a fan who recounts the incident from a convention.
Because
but there's no. It's a story that was told in Trekkies too. It's not. But again, it doesn't matter. Although I was looking, the Wikipedia article for it says the Oxford English Dictionary dates Trekker to 1967, and Trekkie is dated to 1978. But it says the distinction existed as early as May 1970 when the editor of fanzine Deck 6 wrote, "When I started acting like a bubble-headed Trekkie, rather than a sober, dignified, albeit enthusiastic Trekker. That's from like 1970. That's like right when the show was like just finishing up its run. So it's weird. And then, you know, there was what, 70 to 79 with nothing. Well, no, the animated series. And then so it's a different experience for, because there's those lulls, nearly decade lulls between the fandom being ravenous with new content to then Next Generation, which when Next Generation was announced and came out, there were people writing Paramount and sending letters to Gene Roddenberry and saying, you should not do Star Trek without Kirk and Spock. This is unacceptable. Like getting death threats, like insane, like the same insane shit that happens today, but happening back then. Just it took longer for the threat to get to the person because
there was no internet to like sort of to like
they had to actually send it in the mail. It was more effort, and they were doing it. They had to print it out, put it in an envelope, put a stamp on it, and put it in the mail, and they still did it.
And when they talked about it on the news, they made
put one more time
instead of like giving it gravity. So like, there's imagine if there had been the internet back then and people making YouTube content, how differently that would have played out. Like,
yeah. Oh my gosh. So
we would have never had. It would have ended with Tasha Yar and what was it? Was it like a? It was like a tar person or something. I cannot. There's just too much to unpack there with that death that I cannot. I will not.
Anyway. I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah, like
you will in like 2 years.
When you get to that episode, no matter how far in the future it is, even if I'm dead, get the Ouija board so that we can like have.
No, you're not going to die, Allison. We already planned this out. We're uploading your consciousness to whoever you want it to be, and they're going to be my best friend.
I want to be like Synergy in like the Gem cartoon, like a robot that lives in like a piano thing, but sometimes
we can do that.
Have the like sexy robot body, like that's
okay. Cool. I promise.
And sometimes I have to use like robot lasers to just like level the city when somebody really annoys me. So yeah,
we're an hour and a half in, and we're only on.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
That's okay. It's a casual chat.
But like these middle questions are like pretty simple.
Pretty
we're gonna
quick,
rapid, pretty quick. Hopefully, we're gonna try to rapid fire through them and then leave the last two. I think we'll play the 2 videos and then we'll ask them the last 2 questions. How does that sound, Johnny?
That sounds good to me. I mean, I'm having a fantastic time just sitting and bullshitting about Trek, and I could do it all night.
I am too.
We've got 7 more questions to get.
This is like happy hour for me. I get to sit here and be sassy.
Yes. And we love it, and we appreciate y'all being here. Okay, so I'm just going to mush these 2 questions together. What series is your favorite, and what movie is your favorite? Brick, I'll have you start. Just quick, short little answers.
Sure, recency bias is strong in me, but I'll just say Strange New Worlds. And
really?
And movie First Contact.
Okay. Cool. Allison?
Enterprise, obviously. And Get Mad. The first Kelvinverse movie, like where it was just perfect. Because after that, but it was still good. I still watched all of those and didn't fall asleep. But the first one was it was perfect, like gateway to getting why people love Star Wars, Star Trek for me. Like it was a little bit more Star Wars like. So Enterprise in the first reboot movie.
Love. Johnny?
Next Generation for series. I'm not ready to dethrone it yet. Strange New Worlds is fantastic, but I'm not ready to dethrone TNG as my favorite. It probably never will be. Movie, I think this is probably for people who know and have seen them, this is an unlikely pick. I think Generations is my favorite of the Next Gen movies. I saw that movie like 5 times in the theater when it came out. very distinctly remember on Thanksgiving Day going to the movie theater. I forget what else was playing, but my sister and her husband and my niece and my mom went to see something else, and I went to see Generations again. Like, I was supposed to go see the movie with them, but I was like, hey, Star Trek's playing at the same time. Can I go see that instead? And they were like, yeah, sure. So I went and watched Star Trek Generations again. Like, that was a big event for me. I love that movie.
Amazing. I don't know if I have a favorite yet because I've only seen 2 series. And they're both very different.
Out of what you've seen, what do you prefer?
I mean, I have to prefer Strange New Worlds. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's not a surprise.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. But I mean, I'm stupidly enjoying TOS. Like, it's been so much fun to go through it, and it is a trip for sure. But yeah, I'm gonna have to say Strange New Worlds, and also same as Allison, the Chris Pine first Star Trek movie. But you know, those 3 are the only ones I've seen anyways, so gotta go with that one. Okay. Favorite ship / class, and also favorite captain. Go, Brick.
Favorite ship / class.
This was Johnny's question.
That's rough. Probably at this point, favorite ship would be the Enterprise D. And then, yeah, the big D. And then, what was the other one? Sorry.
Oh, favorite
It's
captain.
kind of the same. Like, captain.
Oh, captain.
I was thinking the
Captain.
class part.
Captain. It's probably still Picard. Yeah.
Allison?
The Enterprise, one of them, all of them. And despite which my favorite one is, Scott Bakula, I actually would pick Picard as my favorite captain because he's actually interesting. Scott Bakula is easy on the eyes, but he's kind of like apple pie boring. Like, he's fun to look at, but he's kind of like Picard had like some sass to him. Like, he wasn't like Scott Bakula is a Boy Scout, whereas Picard sort of every so often got that glint in his eye, like, oh, we're about to fuck some shit up right here. Be damned, like the manual or what is it, the Prime Directive, or
Prime
every so often
The Prime Directive.
every so often Picard was just like, let's throw the book out and like do this, like whatever the equivalent of like street fighting would be in like Star Trek time. Like, he was just every so often like, screw the rules, we're in, like, we're gonna take those bastards out. Like, I just appreciate that.
Bastards.
And I mean, it's like Patrick Stewart. He's like Professor
Patty
X.
Stew.
He's like hot for an old he's the second hottest bald person on Star Trek.
That guy has been, central, or not central, has been a part of a lot of my like favorite nerdy franchises too. So anyways, yes, it's Gurney Halleck right there.
Johnny.
I mean, I think I have to go with the Enterprise D for my favorite ship. And Picard is my captain. Like, it's hard not to pick those. I have a soft spot for lots of weird, like, love the Excelsior class. I love the Akira class, as Eldor said was his favorite. Steamrunner class, down to the ridiculous Oberth class starship that explodes every time it's on screen. They're all great. I love them all.
Love. Okay, on to the toys.
Wait,
does
will
anyone...
you answer?
I don't know.
There's 2
I can only. There's only 2. I feel weird. Okay, as of now, Pike. I don't know about ships.
Okay.
Not yeah.
Just wondering. I will say,
if Newkirk, I love this Newkirk, not just because it's Paul Wesley and he was in Vampire Diaries, If he gets his own show, I think I might like him more than OG Kirk. I love him.
Real quick, honorable mentions. I really love the design of Discovery. It's really weird, and plus it does cool things. And then Captain. Oh, I just wanted to say about Picard. That's a really. I feel like it's a little stacked because screen time. We've gotten to see him more, and we've gotten to see him do way more than any other captain has ever done. Like the range is crazy. He was, spoiler alert, villainous. He was everything. We saw him as a little kid. We saw him as a really old man. We saw him as a really, 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 really old man. Like he's just gotten a chance to do a way more. So that's why for me, I think it's kind of stacked. Like he's just done a lot of cool things.
I mean, they're doing a lot with Pike in Strange New Worlds to give Picard a run for his money. Pike is easily coming in at number 2 for me. But yeah, so it'll be interesting to see what the rest of Strange New Worlds brings.
On a personal level, if I ever had the choice to hang out with one of them, it would be with Pike. He's just seems like a really cool person compared to the rest of them.
Good human, and hot.
Oh, I was going to say, an interesting thing about the Discovery, that ship was one of the original concept art options for the Enterprise. So that's kind of cool. Yeah, the Phase 2, the movie Phase 2. Phase 2 was going to be like the sequel show that never materialized, and a lot of Phase 2 stuff got recycled into not just the motion picture, but Next Generation.
Interesting.
Curious to see when you get to Discovery, Kayla. That's all I'll say.
I'm curious too, but I will completely forget this conversation.
By that time, we should have hit first contact, I think. Yeah.
With the aliens.
Well, Admiral Vladimir's checking in.
Oh, Vlad, how's he doing?
He's okay. He's himself.
Yeah, he's a cute pussy.
He sure is.
Anyways, toys. Do y'all collect any Trek toys? If so, what do you collect? Vintage, new, or both? Allison, you want to start? Clearly, you have some toys. Yes.
I like the ball chick. So I don't have the Playmates one is in storage, and they're not expensive on eBay. So I'm probably gonna buy one instead of driving to Texas at this point and unloading all of my stuff that's in storage there because it's a long truck. Truck. But also, and I have a bunch of Whoopi Goldberg. I mean, whatever her name was on the Next Generation.
Guinan.
Yeah, that
was
lady.
It Guinan?
Something like she's had an.
It's Guinan, but it was
She had amazing
the other night.
And like it was, but the thing is anytime she was on screen, it was clearly Whoopi Goldberg. So anyway, and I have a bunch of her figures, and I've got one counselor that came in the lot, but it was appropriate because I wanted Deanna Troy. I mean, we share a last name. So on my list, I'm gonna get some more of the Playmates 90s because they're dirt cheap anyway. Just to fish out like because I collect female action figures, and it's one of the most expensive lines for female figures. I was really into Power Force 2, and Clueless had dolls around the same time. So
wait, there's Clueless dolls? Oh my god, hello, dog.
From the TV show though. So there's no Brittany Murphy and no Alicia Silverstone. It's TV share, but you get Amber Alert. As if like I would really shop at Judy's. Anyway. Wait, Mr. Hall, how am I supposed to answer that? The topic is Haiti, and she's talking about some little party. Hello, is this 50th birthday? Anyway, yeah, so I want to get more, but it's not there. I've got so many other things I want to get first. I have looked at some of the new figures though, and if they were to come out with a really good Nichelle Nichols action figure, I would bump that to the top on my list because she has not gotten a good figure yet. And she's like, for me, OG like needs to be on my shelf. And even the Playmates ones of her are not very good.
No, I
Um,
haven't seen them in a long time.
Yeah, they're just I mean, outside of Kirk and Spock, I feel like Playmates really didn't give the OG characters, like even the Takai figures aren't particularly great. But yeah, I definitely want I need some Nichelle Nichols. It's too bad we've lost her because she was amazing. So I don't know, like for me the toys are, it's not like you can really, I mean, I'm sure there are kids who did, but like for me, I do have a Tasha Yar figure in storage as well. Because in 1987 there was no Deanna Troi figure, so but there aren't very. It's before Playmates did them, so whoever was it Galoob maybe?
Yeah, I think there was one
She has,
run of toys from Galoob early that I've never even seen in real life.
They're still pretty cheap on the internet. I got
those 3 3/4 5 POA.
and that was part of why I sort of picked it up. Was I'm like, I can just custom it into something cool that isn't Tasha Yar. So yeah, I'm gonna pick up some stuff, but it's not the top of my list unless they get me the Nichelle Nichols, or if they update the exquisitely beautiful and bald Lieutenant Navigator of the Enterprise. And since it was such a big deal in 1979, 1980 that she was bald, I am going to continue to make that my focal point of her character. So.
Moondragon.
Yep. Exactly. So yeah, that's it for me in Star Trek toys. Obviously not super invested. It's not really toyetic, I don't think.
Exactly.
And I think that's sort of why Star Trek does struggle as a toy line regularly. It's just not the playset is the bridge, which
I loved that
great as an adult
Playmates
collector,
bridge playset when I was 10, 11 years old. I had it.
Really?
Yeah, I loved it. The pressing the buttons to make things light up and make the phaser sounds. The transporter playset was more interesting because it had it actually made the figures disappear and whatnot.
Okay.
Yeah, but I loved it when I had them, and I was like I said, I was like 10, 11, 12 years old when they were out.
Okay. Well, that's fair. I stand by they're not particularly toyetic, but it sounds like Playmates did what they could to try to get it there. It's just like they're all in the same uniform, like.
Yep.
Yeah.
Even Lucas knew to change the costumes up.
I think Brick, did you answer or did you?
I didn't, and it's a short answer. I don't have any. The only toy that I ended up getting was there was an Enterprise D back in the day that had 3 buttons that you could press.
Yeah, that's a Playmates one. I mean, there's been a couple different ones like that.
And that was to echo some of the things
that's
that
all I wanted to say.
Yeah, Brick had to chase the and so if you found the right button, it would make different noises. So what Allison said about the nature of it, like the toyetic nature, I'm sure people would disagree, but in my brain, Star Trek was always kind of like heady, as I was explaining earlier.
Yeah.
And so the coolest things to play with in my brain were the ships. Like if I could, my perfect scenario would be like they would release them all in scale, like a scale that was manageable, and I would love to get those, like build out armadas and stuff. But the people themselves, they all pretty much like wear the same uniforms. And I think for my toys, like, I love we had a G.I. Joe collection, but G.I. Joe got really interesting once I got out of green. And so that's where I was. That's my shortish answer.
I think it does best as like a role play items, like because I had the Next Generation phaser. I have the Next Generation tricorder in the other room. This
that's hot.
Woo! It's very aggressive, Johnny.
Uh-oh.
Gonna overload.
Needs to be charged.
Don't overload your phaser. And their Gorn could attack. or some sort of tar monster. It was a tar monster. People. A tar monster. Just
I had
That was
the badges. That's I like the ships too, Brick. I'm with you. That's why I've got the. These are all
Yeah, that's so
125th,
cool.
2,500. I think it is 25,000. I don't remember the scale, but they're all in the scale from like the NX01
See,
all the
that's
way
cool.
up to the E. Like these are in scale. I had the micro machines. They had so many micro machines. Those were not in scale.
Yeah, they were all
When
over
they-
the place.
Yeah. But I had the I don't know where any of the stuff is anymore. I had a lot of the Playmates figures and the bridge playset and the transporter room playset. Right now, mostly what I have is that ephemera, the role play item, the ship, which aren't technically toys, they're model kits that I put together. Yeah, I was always Star Trek collecting to me was always about stuff, like
Staff.
I have so many different pins and things of that nature, but not. I do have Kirk because he was on clearance at Walmart for $10, the new Kirk, and I got Gwendala from Prodigy because she was my
she's
favorite
cool.
character
I
on
looked
that
at that.
show.
She's cool.
Ooh. That's
She is
cool.
awesome. This is not an $18 figure. This was $18 on Big Bad Toy Store.
Jesus.
The only reason I got him was because he was on clearance for 10. 10 still feels like a little much
What
to me.
scale are those again?
They're like the weird like 4.12 inch. They're their own scale. They're not even in scale with like the vintage Playmates Star Trek toys. They're different. They're a little taller.
Everybody's so
she-
creative.
She is cool, but not an $18 toy.
Yeah.
I don't think.
Did you see how everyone sort of reacted to when you held her up? And I will say,
Yeah.
you mentioned the stuff. Like as a kid, to me, that's what captured my. Like, oh, I want to be on a ship, or I want to be on a transporter, or I want to handle a phaser, or whatever it was. And then the aliens. That's the other piece, the non-human. But it's like, oh, I want to have those ears, or I want to have those ridges, or that. Like and in the newest Star Trek
her
the Kelvin
nose
series,
shiny?
what was the
Yeah.
name of the character, the woman character in the third movie where she has black and white makeup?
Jayla.
Dude, she was amazing looking and was
Yeah.
just so cool. Like that's the stuff that definitely caught my attention, but not so much people in uniform.
But some of those uniforms are green instead of mustard yellow.
Huge difference.
Mustard yellow. It's
Oh,
nothing quite inspires you to get on the ground with the action figures than black and mustard yellow uniform. And at least West Fisher was gray and had like a rainbow. Like that was
my high school colors were yellow and brown. I don't know what the fuck they were thinking. And it's very funny now because the Padres are back to yellow and brown. I'm like, yeah, yellow and brown, flush them down, baby.
the cow pies. Was that your mascot?
Sports.
A cow pie?
It was a Lancer.
A Lancer.
Lancer Yellow Dancer.
Sorry. Derek.
Anyways, I have this toy. I have these toys.
Those are
And
awesome.
I have the Spock Freddy Funko from Funko Fridays or Funko Fun Days at Comic-Con because I was there. My friend was able to get me in. It was a fun experience. I'm not super into Funkos. I have some things, but our one section ended up getting the Spock Freddy Funko, and there's only 850 of them. Sadly, I could not keep it at the time because my friend, I was like taking someone's spot who was supposed to be there and then was going to be selling the Funkos essentially. So I got to go for free. So I'm like, I'm not complaining. I'm here. But then my friend who got me in, he was like, hey, I found it because it was going for like $500 after.
Oof.
Yeah, it was insane. And I was like, I'm not going to pay that, but I'll pay like maybe 100. And so he was able to find one for around that. And it was great. And I got it and I was really excited. I was like, this is the most I'm ever going to pay for a Funko, but it's worth it. And there's only that many out there. And I had it in my hands. Like I had it. We won it. Our section won it in the game that we played. And by we, I mean like there was a couple people out of the massive section of like 700 something people that went up there to play the game. But yeah, and then I think I forget which stream I showed it off in, but I got the little diorama of now I'm forgetting the name of that episode.
The menagerie.
Menagerie. Yeah, the menagerie. With Kirk, Pike, and Spock when Pike is in his chair.
In a beep beep chair.
Beep beep chair. I have that little diorama now that I got from a thrift store. That's it. Those are my toys. And I will keep collecting them. Except for I'm trying to find more on like the original series, and yeah, I'm gonna have to get some of those transporter ones. Those look pretty awesome. Next questions. What do we have? Let's see. We did toys. Standout / favorite characters. And while we're on it, just any standout episodes without spoiling too much. Don't everyone talk at once.
All right, I'll go.
Okay.
To Paul, not the Pal one, that a British lady later named herself after, but the Enterprise one. Definitely. I'm, Nichelle Nichols, obviously. I mean, she transcends character. There was just something about her. I don't know why, because she had the personality of cardboard, but I liked Kirstie Alley's character in the movie and a half she was in.
Oh, that's right.
Cardboard.
Not her fault, but you could tell there. I mean, yeah. Never mind. Let's not talk too much about Kirstie Alley, but bless her heart. But also the cat lady from the cartoon, because that was really probably my first real Star Trek was that Filmation cartoon, which because of the ability to in animation just really go places no man had gone before. They weren't limited the same way by building a set and the special effects of the 60s. I liked, and of course, the exquisitely beautiful and bald Lieutenant Navigator of the Enterprise. I want to make sure I get the tagline right, since it was important enough to put on the back of the toy. Exquisitely bald and beautiful. But and favorite episodes, I like the one with Tasha Yar and the tar monster thing, despite the weirdness of it. I quite enjoyed that episode. I do feel vindicated at the end of that one every time. I'm like, I knew, good. Yes. I also like anything where Q shows up, because Q was, even though he was very Star Trek, he was also not like Star Trek. It was like Q really livened things up in a way, because he sort of, I mean, technically everyone's like, his powers are really defined. They really weren't. He was very like, we need this thing to happen. Okay, we'll just bring in Q and now he can do that. And I think later they kind of went in and streamlined it, but originally it was very just this is the plot thing we need to happen. We'll just say Q can do that. And it was just really cool. I really he and Picard also had oh yeah, just kiss and break the tension, you two. So I liked that. I don't know. It was, I don't know. There was just something really cool about that dynamic that did carry over many seasons of the Next Generation. And I would watch, I mean, because they just came on Saturdays during the day, like all the episodes, not really even in order. And I would stay home. My parents, we lived really rural, and they would go into town. So I had the entire house and the TV and everything to myself on Saturdays when they were gone. So Star Trek The Next Generation was on, and it was just like 2 or 3 episodes back to back before the new one. So it was just, other than the tar monster thing, the rest of them like kind of could happen at any point, because even though there were seasonal arcs, it just sort of was not as tightly, aside from a couple episodes. So like, yeah. So Q, tar monster, usual.
Sounds good. No idea. I mean, I've heard of Q a couple times now.
I think you'll like those. I think those are up your
Okay.
Those are up your alley, Kayla. No, I think you'll enjoy them. They have some of the stuff that I've noticed you enjoy and
Okay.
things.
Are you familiar with Tasha Yar, or no? Is this the first time you're hearing that name?
I might have heard it before, but I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know who that
Yeah,
person is.
she did not.
You like Wilson Phillips?
Oh, don't even. That was my haircut.
I know. That's why I was.
That's why.
That's another layer as to why I've been laughing
I know,
at
right?
your love.
That heifer stole
love
my
for Tasha Yar.
haircut too. Yeah. She didn't want to be buried in that pet cemetery either, but we see where that got her. Anyway.
I swear, Allison's
good stuff.
wealth of knowledge and to make these connections and not just one-liners, but these references, it just blows my mind every time.
If we didn't have the internet, it would be worthless.
The Palpatine.
I mean, if I could live in your mind for a day, it would be amazing. And I'm sure you're gonna say you don't want to live in my mind, as you always do.
I'm not gonna say that. I'm just thinking about I mean, yeah. Well, yeah. I mean,
we'll swap brains for a day. It'll be fun.
Freaky Friday. I'm in.
Yes. It's that time of year. 'Tis the season to get freaky.
You'll be Lindsay Lohan. I'll be Jamie Lee Curtis. No, it's about
beautiful.
That
as you
Freaky
should.
Friday. Okay.
Yes, the new Freaky Friday.
Not the one with
Friday.
Jodie Foster. That one's weird. Anyway. Sorry.
All right, Brick. Characters, episodes.
Favorite character.
Or just like standout characters.
Oh, standout. No, not favorite. Standouts.
Either
couple.
one.
I had mentioned Jayla just because visually and kind of her quirky role in that was not what I expected. So that's something from a newer kind of weirder thing. Cybok and Michael Burnham for a couple of different reasons. Just because I think they're fascinating. And then old school would be Spock. Standout characters. I love Spock.
Okay. What about any episodes in particular?
Yeah. Farpoint was sorry, I'm trying to think back to it. It was the last all good things must pass. All good things was the season finale. I mentioned tachyon earlier, which is a word that I thought was made up and then didn't learn till later that it was actually real. That episode was fantastic, and I don't want to spoil, so I won't. But as someone who watched that show from beginning to end while it was airing, that finale does some really cool things that I was like, whoa, we can do that on TV. And how long was that show running? It was
7
a good
seasons.
amount of. How many?
7 seasons. But
yeah,
when you think 7 seasons too, remember those are 7 seasons of 26 episodes.
Right.
It's not like
episodes.
And
not
so
like seasons today.
I was 11 when it started, and I guess around 17 or 18, because it wasn't every year. It was every year, right? A season a year. So it was 18 when it ended. So like I had been through an entire lifetime, essentially. Like a lot happens in that time.
Your entire childhood.
And I'll just say that. And so did that show. And the way it ended was fascinating.
From 1987 to 1994. It's just 7 years.
Yeah, so I was 11, experienced my first earthquake. Like the next couple, that's like in the 5th grade, and then I was graduating from high school.
And that was when the
Amazing.
series, they had their every season premiered in September,
Mm-hmm.
and the season finales were in like May or June.
Mm-hmm.
I guess the second season premiered in November, but they had trouble in the second season because there was a writer's strike that year. But it ran from September to
Hey,
June,
your
so there was like
people.
three months with no, over the summer where there was no TNG. Not like now. We're gonna have to wait who knows how long for the next season of Strange New
Well,
Worlds.
actually,
That don't remind me.
well, also though, I think it went a
Kevin.
little bit longer into the summer back then. I think
I have a
because
toy
the
for
way
you.
Paramount did the syndication, because it was like on the same, at least for 2 or 3 years, the Friday the 13th, the series, that and the Next Generation were like a package. And I think that ran from like October or November to like July or August, and they would have their finales around the same time because of the way Paramount was doing the production on all of their syndicated. So like they even sort of shifted it. So the year of the writer's strike, it would have been even more out of whack, where it was like ending much earlier than it had other years, and probably
Yeah, it
not
ran to
starting
July.
until November or December. So
Interesting.
yeah, it would have been really, yeah.
Johnny, characters and episodes, standouts, favorites.
Aside from Picard, there would be Data would be the next my favorite character that's not a captain.
Okay.
Episodes. There's too many. There's so many that like. I mean, obviously, once more or not. Yeah, Subspace Rhapsody is a standout episode, even though it's recent.
Wow.
The musical.
That is not one of mine. To no one's surprise.
There's
I enjoyed it.
Measure of a Man, Future Imperfect, Best of Both Worlds, obviously, for people who have seen it. The Drumhead. There's Cause and Effect. I like the Future Imperfect style stuff. Where you get parallels. Parallels is another good one like that. That's where this is probably my favorite of the next gen comm badges, and it's the alternate reality one that is only on screen like 2 times.
It's cool.
Oh, and this one, the one from All Good Things as well. So
Danos just posted this beauty.
Whenever you're going to be able to talk about All Good Things and spoilers around that, I want to be there. I love it. Anyways.
Shout out
And
to
you
Danos.
mentioned, I love that you Once More with Feeling is what I think where you were going. I was like,
went
this
the
is
wrong
great.
show. I went Buffy, but I meant the Subspace Rhapsody. Yeah, and the
We all knew what you
musical
meant.
episode. Yeah.
Lower Dicks. Oh, that crossover is so good. Even though I haven't watched Lower Dicks, I will get there one day.
Someday.
Yeah, it's gonna be very, very in the future.
Once, yeah, we'll
see.
Shout out Sri.
Yeah, I gotta say Ahura and Nurse Chapel, because she's my girl. And Hot Spock. Not old Spock, Hot Spock. I also really like,
Which Hot Spock?
New Hot Spock.
New Hot Spock. Yes. Not Kelvin verse Hot Spock, even though he is Hot Spock too. I think La'an is probably another one. I like her.
Yeah.
She's a badass. Episodes I loved. I think in TOS, The menagerie was fun. Both parts. I really liked Shore Leave, as we talked about. It's just a crazy, crazy time.
Mm-hmm.
And what did we just? I mean, yeah, there's been a lot of good ones recently in TOS. For Strange New Worlds, all of them. Charades, just because that's when Chapel and Spock finally kiss, and I freaked the fuck out, and I was like, finally. The Gorney finale was great too, even with the cliffhanger. I was like, you fucks. Gorney. It's getting Gorney up in here. Okay, we're gonna play we had some friends, Vactor and Andrew's GaytiesToys, sent in their answers to all these questions, including our final 2 questions, but we wanted to save those for after with our guests. So we're going to play their videos. Do you want to do Vactor's first?
Sure.
Johnny? You guys can enjoy.
So when did I first start watching Star Trek? I was probably, I want to say elementary school. My dad was a huge Star Trek fan, but it was really The Next Generation that got me hooked. The original series I thought was boring. These are old guys. The technology's old. But Next Gen, okay, now we got some Next Generation technology going on. So this is for me. This is what I want to watch. As I continued my Star Trek journey, what actually ended up hooking me was the storytelling and the writing. And every single series, I ended up getting hooked in reruns, in syndication. So even the original series, I went back and I had it on in the background and I started playing it and I was like, oh man, these stories are actually really good. It doesn't matter if the technology is bad or if things look outdated. These stories are great. The characters are great and the stories are great. And that went down the line every single series from Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, Voyager. Actually, the only one I did not get hooked on was Enterprise. Trekkie, Trekker, I don't care. They're all the same. You're a Star Trek fan. And all-time favorite series is Next Generation. There's way too many things about it that are fantastic. But mostly it's the characters and the writing. I love every single character on Next Generation. And that's what made Picard interesting for me, was when the Next Generation characters came back. When it was just focusing on Picard, I was kind of bored. So the crew of the Next Gen, that is the one that I love. My favorite Star Trek movie, I gotta say, is probably the original J.J. Abrams. That was the one that kind of made it feel like Star Wars, which, as you know, I'm a pretty big Star Wars fan. And that J.J. Abrams one, hooked me from the music to the storytelling, the acting, the cast in particular. The cast was spot on. That was the best part about that movie. So J.J. Abrams' original Star Trek movie was fantastic. My favorite ship is probably the original Next Generation ship. Like I said, because it's my favorite series, my favorite crew and cast, I think that one is the one. That saucer design is the one that I think about when I think about Star Trek. I don't really collect too many of the toys. I like some of the Funko Pops, and I'm a Funko Pop guy, so I collect a lot of those, but not a whole lot of things. But I have a few that my friend has given me. My favorite captain of all time is Sisko. I love his attitude. I love just his no-nonsense approach to it. And the first captain of color in the Trek universe. So that was a huge deal. So Sisko was definitely my favorite and still is. Standout characters, man, I love almost all the characters in Star Trek. There's not one that I don't like, so I can't really narrow it down, but I love all the captains. I love all of Spock. Probably is is also a standout for me. But Worf growing up was a huge, and Data. Actually, Data, now that I'm thinking about it, everybody on the Next Gen crew, but Data was my standout character because he was an android, and because I'm a huge technology guy. That to me was like, this is my guy right here, the robot. So my overall takeaway from Star Trek is inclusivity. It means everybody is welcome, international cast and crew, everybody is, in the future, in this utopian future of Star Trek and the Federation, all planets, all races are accepted and welcome. That's what I want to live in. That's the future that I want to live in. And Star Trek basically says, hey, this is possible. This is what can be achieved. Get rid of money, and this is the best society you can have. And Star Trek, ultimately, overall, to me, is that promise of a better future, a better tomorrow. So I love Star Trek.
Yay.
I liked
That was awesome.
I like watching the reactions of everybody and nodding along to the things.
Oh,
he's
you
like,
could see
good
it.
answer, good answer.
Yeah. I liked that his favorite movie was also the Chris Pine movie.
Mm-hmm.
I'm feeling very validated. Even as a newbie. I love that.
Oh, that's
And
cool.
got a chance to talk to Andrew and ask him the same questions. If we want to play that one now.
Okay.
Hi, Andrew. Happy Star Trek Day. Thanks for joining
Happy Star
us.
Trek
Or
Day.
me.
Most wonderful time of the year, isn't
Thanks
it?
for coming on. Yes, indeed. We just wanted to ask you a few questions about your love of Star Trek in celebration of Star Trek Day. So let's get into it. The first question is, when did you start watching, and what did you watch first of Star Trek?
So I probably watched the original series with my father and my brother back in like the 70s and 80s, long after it was off the air, and wasn't a fan. Then I think I might have mentioned before, I was in a toy aisle, saw the Next Generation figures from Playmates, and just got instantly hooked just from the bios and the setup
Ah,
and the colors and
okay.
everything else from there. So I really kind of I dove in to Next Gen at the time, and then that was pretty late in the series, so it really kind of like just propelled me on to Deep Space Nine, Voyager, and then going back and watching everything else.
Amazing. So that's like what hooked you into it was the toys then,
The toys. It was this
would
little
you
lady
say?
here, little drama queen herself. I was like,
Amazing.
I
Love
need to
that.
know what's about this.
Awesome. And I mean, obviously you still collect some Star Trek toys now,
I do. I'm kind of I feel
or
like
do
a lot
you
are springboarding
stick
now,
to
and they're sort of,
vintage?
yeah, I had a lot of vintage, and I I'm kind of waiting to see who kind of wins the Star Trek supremacy currently. It's either Super 7 or Playmates. They're both kind of a little stalled at the moment, so I think once they get a heartier group of characters, I'll be like, okay, I can finally pull the trigger and go for that. But currently, I have a few of the new
Mhm.
Playmates. I'm not in love, but I'd like to see where it goes.
Yeah, definitely. Um, do you consider yourself, I just realized I misspelled this, a Trekkie or a Trekker?
Um, Neither. I was there in probably the 80s and 90s when it was like very important. Like the true fans were Trekkers, and the casuals or the people who didn't know, it was almost like a derogatory term. And I like, even then I didn't care. Like I was for fans. It's like whatever.
That's so
Like
fascinating.
I think I like
Yeah, that's so fascinating to me.
Trekkie just sounds cooler for me. So
Hmm, that's cool. Do you have a favorite Star Trek series and movie?
series is probably Next Gen. It's just it's timeless. It's classic. I'm doing a Voyager rewatch right now, trying not to rewatch Deep Space Nine. So I think DS9 is probably a second. And for movie, I love Wrath of Khan, but Undiscovered Country it was probably one of the first movies I ever saw in theaters. It was so so close to the actual fall of the Berlin Wall and the end of the Cold War that like it was very very pertinent. It was sort of, it hit the hot button at the perfect time. So and it was just and it's just a good
Yeah,
movie. It's a fun good movie. So I think that's probably the favorite.
amazing. Do you have any standout or like favorite characters from any of the series or movies?
Um, there's two, and for different but similar reasons. I would say, like the aforementioned Counselor Troy, she was like a lot of women characters from the 80s and 90s. There were a lot of potential that was not realized, and I think
Hmm.
she had a lot that she could have been. In the series Bible, she was supposed to be the smartest person. She was supposed to be, very exotic, very alien, very um, just much more important than she was. And in the show, she was
Yeah.
sort of like, I mean, Marina Sirtis called herself like sort of like a plant on the bridge kind of thing. So um, she was someone that I
Hmm.
think could have been cooler, and I that's what what I envision her to be cooler as. That's why she's a fave. But the other one on the flip side is Major Kira
Yeah.
from Deep Space Nine because she was fully fleshed out and fully realized by the actor and had an incredible arc and was just in the Ellen Ripley kind of vein of sci-fi heroes kind of thing in the sense that like that part was seemingly written for a man, but Nana Visitor got to play it,
Hmm.
and she said it herself constantly. She's like this role doesn't exist for women. So yeah,
Hmm.
she's a real ride or die. So
Love that. So
mhm.
overall, what do you think the message of Star Trek is?
The message, I mean, obviously inclusion and um, that kind of like vision of the future and whatnot. But I think for the fans, it's the community because I mean, especially in the early days before nerd became cool, before the MCU sort of made everybody
Hmm.
a geek sort of thing. It was more difficult to come out as a nerd than it was to come out as gay. Like it was a very not great thing to be, and I think the Star Trek
Yep.
fandom was really that community that like really like we closed the horses and the wagons and we protected each other and we really found that community with each other, especially before the internet. Um, and even since, I mean, like there's still the fans who are mad at this. That's every fandom, that's every decade. But everyone still
Yeah.
comes together for this love of this franchise and this mythos.
Amazing. So that's kind of, that inclusion and community. Is that what Star Trek ultimately means to you personally?
I think so, yeah. 'Cause I mean, we've really
Yeah.
seen that evolution over the years, where the original bridge crew was wildly ahead of its time. We started
Hmm.
to get like a little bit more sprinkling throughout the 90s, and now it's just it's just a complete smorgasbord. Like they're if you look at
Hmm.
Discovery or anything else. I mean, they're really it's for everyone. It is for
Yeah,
everyone, and it's nice for everyone to be able to see themselves in it now.
definitely. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us. It's
Thank
been
you.
awesome talking Trek with you again.
Mhm.
Um, real quick, where can people find you?
You can find me on Instagram at GaytiesToys, and I post almost daily. And there's some Star Trek stuff coming up for that too.
Ooh, exciting. All right. Well, have a good one. Thanks again. Happy Star Trek Day.
Happy Star Trek Day.
Yay. That was so much fun to do. Also, yeah, if you couldn't tell, there was a bit of delay when we were talking, slash, his audio was very choppy. So I was like, it would take me a second to realize what he was saying. So I'm not slow. It was the internet, okay?
Hmm.
But yeah, it was a
There
lot
was
of
subspace
fun.
interference.
Yeah, but yeah, that was a lot of fun and very grateful for Vactor for sending his interview in. They would have loved to have joined us, but sadly could not tonight. So that was their way of being here in spirit. So to wrap things up, we're going to ask you guys the final kind of like two-parter question of what do you think Star Trek's overall message or messages are, and then ultimately what does Star Trek
Wow.
mean?
You have one
tired.
job.
I'm so tired. What does Star Trek mean to you?
It's only 9:30 there. It's
I
12:30
had
here.
to be up to go to the doctors, okay?
Okay.
And I
That's
didn't really
fair.
sleep because of that.
That
so
is fair.
yes. All right. Not everyone go at once.
Overall message, and what does it mean to us?
You personally.
Overall message, I think a lot has already sort of been said around some of the issues of sort of like representation and depicting a vision of humanity and humanity's story that actually includes a good chunk of humanity. So I'll circle back to that, but I think it's that idea of humanity's story that I kind of take so much away from Star Trek, because unlike some of my other favorite franchises, which are very fantasy based, whether it's Star Wars or Masters of the Universe, this was very much centered in our story, humans here on Earth, and like what could happen, and it was also very informed by human history. So like even though I kind of rag on and get annoyed when these people in the far off future would like talk about entertainment, or talk about history, it'd always be like from our era, like but still it was informed by maybe what Gene was seeing in terms of humanity and what he wanted to reflect on the screen. And then, of course, everybody else after telling Star Trek stories. So there's something about that, this notion of like progress, right? That people said like it's a really beautiful vision of the future. And I agree, it is at its sort of essence, the idea of a federation, the idea of a federation of planets like coming together, and that like we're not even talking about like humans have generally figured it out to the point where now we're kind of talking about things on on this much larger interstellar level. But what I appreciate about Star Trek, especially as we move forward in Star Trek storytelling, is that despite the sort of like, oh, glossy like future, there's always this sense that like we should always be vigilant, and there's always going to be some struggle. Sure, as Vactor pointed out, they don't have money. And so some of the conversations around money and resources and what people do with their lives, et cetera, have been sort of figured out in a different way. But there were new struggles, right? Some of them are not new. Some of them are like, how do we treat brand new cultures and people that we've never engaged with? Like, even though they're super highly evolved, and there are still times when you're like, ooh, that's a little sus. Like, and I think that's incredibly realistic, right? I think that's just recently in Strange New Worlds, that whole trial episode was beautiful, because it absolutely makes sense to me that despite everything that somehow Star Trek has figured out when it comes to different identities and like how we treat people of different identity categories and all these different systems of power and oppression, there's now this question around, eugenics, or sorry, well, yes, around like all people who are genetically altered, or like there's all sorts of this new thing that we need to be supposedly cautious of or fearful of. And I think that's the beauty of Star Trek to me, is that we should always kind of like be super reflective. I think Gene or other folks have use this whole idea like Star Trek holds up a mirror for us to reflect on ourselves. And I think the characters in the show are constantly doing that. I mentioned Picard and how he did Hela in his like time. He's constantly reflecting. Like even his entire like return to the show in his own series called Picard is really about like reflecting on like, wait, who am I? Like, how did I come here? And I appreciate that. I think that's the thing that humanity needs to do more of. And then what it means to me, yeah, I think what it means to me is it's kind of everything I already said. Like it reminds me about about just sort of like pausing, reflecting, thinking about things in a much grander scale than me, and all the crap that I'm dealing with, and kind of stepping back and realizing
Yeah.
there's a lot more out there that one is probably responsible for why I'm dealing with a lot of day-to-day stuff, but also there's a lot more out there to appreciate. There's a lot more. I'm going to tie in some Star Wars. I recognize the things that bind us, right, collectively, and
Mhm.
so that, I guess that's what it means to me. Period.
Love that. Allison, what about you?
Kind of sort of the same stuff. I mean, obviously as a kid the diversity really appealed to me. You know, despite, some of the in retrospect it seems like there's some shortcomings in that, but at the time, like, you know, a black woman, an Asian man, a Russian. I mean, he was white, but still he was Russian, and especially late 70s, early 80s, Russians were not, cycles. Anyway, at the time, like that was kind of, and like they would go to other planets. I mean, even though it always kind of looks like lovely downtown Burbank, I did sort, like again, I always kind of wanted to like Star Trek because it was always so, it was just different. There was, the way it looked, and it was ironically, the hope of Star Trek never quite lived up in the episodes for me or in the movies until much later. But there is sort of, when I think of Star Trek, I do think of, like they do face a lot of the same problems we do, but they've like removed some of it. Like, we have a united federation of planets, like obviously Earth has sort of come together, and like, the people of Earth are sort of at peace with each other. So there's not strife, but of course now we've sent people into space and to explore, the undiscovered country and whatnot. But we're sort of going out there and we're finding the problems that technically we were supposed to have solved. And like, so they're having to confront the things that we deal with through various, and then sometimes getting into I mean, like, there's a pretty fair argument for, sort of what they're doing is colonization. So, like, that's a topic for another time. But at the same time, there is sort of, the hope and sort of the wonder of discovery, but at the same time, sort of that Wizard of Oz thing where it's like, yeah, but you're kind of still finding what you had at home the whole time. Like, sure, there's peace on Earth now or whatever, but there's not in space. And so we're going to go look for all these other worlds and potentially discover things that we supposedly solved. So there's, there's the hope, but there's also sort of just the concept that no matter what we do with ourselves, like there's still, you can be at peace with them, but you still have to go out sort of into the world and deal with people who aren't. So yeah, I don't know. It's like, the diversity is great. I do love that. I don't know. It's sort of like the, I don't want to call it the dark side of Star Trek for obvious reasons, because that's Star Wars thing. But I do sort of appreciate that even though there's this utopia, it's like they still don't, there are times where they get into it with each other in really pivotal ways. Like in Next Generation, Riker and Deanna Troi, like there are times where the two of them are just not, we still haven't resolved all of that. Like, Kirk, Spock, they can't be together. So it's sort of the same old thing, but just in a different way. So there is, to me, ironically, something hopeful about the realization that no matter how much we evolve as a, society / planet, we're still going to have to deal with the same stuff we're dealing with now. So we can't actually be so hopeful for a better future that we just sort of ignore everything, because it's still going to come back. So I don't know. It's long, it's rambly, but that's sort of where it's at for me. Like, you can go home, but no matter where you go, you're still you. and you're still gonna encounter your nonsense out in space. So the Gorn, tar monsters, all the rest of it.
There's going to be monsters in different forms no matter where you go.
Pretty much. So
And they can be within you and they can be outside of you. I like that.
yeah, something like that. It's much more eloquent
Something
than
like that.
it was.
You know, maybe being in my delusional state brought me there because I usually don't do that kind of thinking like Brick does so often. And just says it so well. All right, Johnny, you're up.
Points, because a lot of it has already been said by Vactor, by Brick, by Allison. Things that I either missed or I don't know if they were mentioned. You talk about inclusivity, but also acceptance of everybody, regardless. And the idea that one of the things they talk about is the crew, togetherness, and working together. You're this
Uniting.
Yeah, the sum of the parts thing, like everybody working together and leaning on each other and relying on each other. Like we said during one of the Strange New Worlds streams, one of the things that Star Trek has been described as has been competency fantasy. Like everybody is competent in their roles and knows what they're doing, which does not necessarily happen in the real world all the time. And that's one of the things we talked about. Pike has people in place. They know their jobs, and he trusts that they know their jobs. So when they come to him with something, an idea, a suggestion, he's like, "Are you sure?" And when they're like, "Yes," he's like, "All right, do it." Like, and I think Picard had a similar kind of nurturing. We saw it in the episode Lower Decks, in a way, with his interaction with one of the ensigns in that episode. Believing in the people that you have in their roles and that they know their jobs, and relying on everybody to do what they're supposed to do. So I think it comes down to that too, along with everything that's already been mentioned. The acceptance of people for who and what they are, and then, trusting them to, I guess, do what they're supposed to do what you have them in place for, and working together and filling those gaps with people that know what they need to do. So the competency fantasy.
Filling gaps. That's important. Sorry. I had to.
So that the message and what it means to me is like, if I've said before, people are people. We're all people. Like if we could just get that and like not worry about what other people are doing.
Else. Yeah.
Then
like, who cares about anyone else? Live your own fucking life. It's not that hard to be a decent fucking human. We all are different from each other, but we all are human at the end of the day, and that should unite us more than anything else. Boom.
People are people, so why should it be you and I should get along so awfully?
Fair.
Sorry. Yeah.
Don't be a dick.
Mode snuck in there. Don't be a dick. Yes.
It's not that hard.
Don't
Just
be a
don't be a
dick.
dick.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I will second what everyone else has already said. I just realized I got something on the front of these guys, and I'm really sad now. The dog is like, "Are you done yet? Give me attention." So that's why I'm making these motions. I'm not jacking off at a ghost. Or am I?
Kasia, is that you? Google
yeah,
Kasia if you don't get it.
But yeah, I've been very much enjoying Star Trek, both old and new, because I've watched both now, and it's nice to see a lot of those same themes of, like we were just saying, inclusivity, acceptance, uniting together, and just all of these different things. And I think for me personally, it'll probably take a while for me to come up with an answer of what it means to me. I think that is something that literally comes with time and that I just have not had yet. But I mean, as of right now, it means to me that I have become friends with Johnny and you guys, and like have bonded over this franchise with many different people now. And, you know, that's what I love about being a geek and about being a geek now, is that I am able to do that and like find these communities and have these amazing people to talk to and create these connections and friendships that, you know, hopefully will last a very long time. So as of now, very broadly, very cheesily, that is what Star Trek means to me.
Aw, it's very sweet.
You know, clearly I'm delusional because I would not have thought of that, you know, being at normal function. But yeah, anyways, we better head out. It is almost 3 hours. Jesus
Oh my
Christ.
goodness.
That's how
Just
streaming
one
works.
final thought
Yes.
from me.
Oh, yeah.
This exquisitely beautiful and bald Lieutenant Navigator of the Enterprise. Just want you all to like have a great weekend, live long and prosper, and may the force be with you.
Mhm.
Oh wait, that's wrong. Anyway, she's exquisitely bald and beautiful.
Love that. Well, thanks
Rest
you
in
guys for
peace,
joining
Sinead.
us. Yeah, any last thoughts from you, Brick, for Star Trek Day?
Nope, just live long and prosper, peace and long life, all of that stuff. There's a lot of great nuggets in Star Trek, so that's all.
I particularly like the IDIC, infinite diversity and infinite combinations.
IDIC. Yes, I appreciate that. Especially because it's called IDIC. But yeah, thanks everyone for joining us. Thanks everyone who's joined us in the chat, or if you're watching on the replay, thanks for watching on the replay. We greatly appreciate it. Allison, would you like to tell everyone where they can find your amazing, colorful drawings and where they can find some other future projects of yours?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram at Allison_of_Troy. That's pretty much everything, a little bit of. And you can find me here on YouTube at Retro Toy Princess. I just had my first non-coloring video go up last night.
Oh my gosh, I still need to watch it. I knew I was forgetting to watch something.
Yeah, well, just, you know, it's like
it's been
just
a day.
under 7 minutes. You've got, you know, just get that watch time up. But and I'll be doing I'll be doing more non-shorts content in the coming weeks. So definitely, you know, check it out, especially if you're into 80s pop culture stuff. I'll have a bunch of stuff coming. So,
which I think a lot of people here are. Brick, what about you? Where can people find you? What do you have coming up?
You can find me at bricksomething.com, which will take you right to the YouTube channel. To Sunday, I do every Sunday from 4:30 to 5:45-ish Pacific time. The Brick Something News, which is an acronym for Needless Ephemera We Saw, aka Brick Something News, aka BS News, because it's not actually news. It's just stuff that I want to talk to people about. So come check it out if you want to geek out with me. There's an episode of AWOC Talk coming at some point, and I've been doing shorts of all these wonderful little pieces of plastic, and I've just sort of been enjoying doing it. Thank you. And I think that's the main thing. I'll just sort of be here, there, and around.
As
Brick
he
is
should
all
be.
things.
I said this on your stream, but I'm like, Brick, you deserve to be everywhere. He's gonna cringe again. He was like, I could see him like curling up in his shell as I was like giving him all these compliments. He's like, no, that's just like shows how good of a human you are.
Thank you.
Please stop.
So what were you saying, John?
I'll stop.
Twice. But thank you.
I think that's it. Yes. Happy Star Trek Day, everyone. I almost said Star Wars. Jesus Christ. We need to get the fuck out of here. Yes.
May the
Thanks again
force be
for
with you.
yes, always. If you want to find us, we on our social medias, you can find us at GTFO channel and everything. If you want to email us, it is channelgtfo@gmail.com. Yes, you are omnipresent.
Vactor and Andrew GaytiesToys info are in the description.
Yes. Can't forget that. And very grateful for them for virtually joining us. I don't know how to joining us in a way. And coming up for us, we have our normal Trek Retrek every Thursday at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. And then next Friday, we're super excited. We're going to have on Kevin from Toying Around, Yoko, as well as Michael from Toy Habits. So it is going to be a stacked cast talking about episodes 4 and 5 of Ahsoka, which 4 was crazy enough. 5 apparently is going to be in theaters for some people. So I feel like it's going to be extra crazy.
Freaking wild.
So yeah. And then September 29th, we will have Allison back on again to talk about Ahsoka with Colleen, aka Geek Out Life J's wife, / she does a podcast called The Broadcast. And then Yoko will be on again, and it will be a all-women stream. We are kicking out Johnny for that.
I'll be in the chat, but I'm not allowed to be on the stream.
Yeah, it'll be girls rule, boys drool stream. And then our final episode, because we saved the best for last, Brick, on October 6th, will be with Brick and Adam of Highly Articulated. And we'll be talking about episode 8 of Ahsoka. Woo. And then, they're going to kick things off. And then there just might be some surprise people on after that may or may not have been on streams previously, and maybe some new people as well. So check out that. It's going to be a lot of fun. Make sure you guys smack the like, smack the subscribe, smack the bell icon of everyone who joined us, as well as our stuff. Thank you. Yeah, smack all the things. And am I missing anything else? I'm out of breath.
I think you got it all.
Okay. All right. Until next time, peace and long life.
Live long and prosper.
Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope.